Have you ever stood beneath a sky so vast it made your breath catch? The stars above us aren't just pinpricks of light. They're the echoes of ancient stories, whispered across millennia by cultures who saw gods, heroes, and monsters in the constellations. From the rugged cliffs of Greece to the sprawling deserts of Mesopotamia, every civilization has looked up and woven myths into the heavens, turning the cosmos into a celestial tapestry of wonder and mystery. But here's the thrilling part: these aren't just forgotten tales. Hidden in these myths are clues to how our ancestors made sense of the universe, and some of their stories might just hold truths we're only beginning to uncover today. Picture this: a Babylonian priest tracing the path of Venus, believing it to be the fiery chariot of Ishtar, goddess of love and war, or Polynesian navigators using the Pleiades not just as a guide across the ocean, but as a sacred link to their ancestors. These myths weren't mere entertainment, they were maps, calendars, even moral codes, etched into the night sky, and what's truly astonishing is how many of these stories share uncanny similarities, as if humanity's collective imagination was somehow tuned to the same cosmic frequency. Could there be something deeper tying these celestial legends together, something beyond coincidence? That's exactly what we're about to explore. Over the course of this journey, we'll unravel 50 of the most intriguing myths ever spun about the heavens, from the Norse wolf who chases the sun to the Chinese legend of the Weaver Girl and the cowherd, forever separated by the Milky Way. You'll discover how eclipses were once seen as dragons devouring the sun, why the Maya believed the stars were the eyes of the dead, and how these ancient stories still shape our understanding of the cosmos today. So settle in, because we're not just retelling myths, we're decoding the secrets of the sky itself, one breathtaking story at a time. Before time itself began, there was nothing, or so we might think. But countless cultures whispered of something far more extraordinary: a single luminous egg floating in the void. This wasn't just any egg. Crack open the ancient Hindu text called the Rig Veda, and you'll find the Hiranyagarbha, a golden cosmic egg cradling the entire universe within its shell. When it split open, Brahma emerged, sculpting reality from its shattered pieces. Half a world away, Egyptians told of the god Atum rising from the primordial waters of Nun, cradled inside a celestial egg laid by the great goose that flew across the darkness. Even the Orphic mysteries of Greece sang of Phanes, the radiant deity who burst forth from a silver egg, setting the stars in motion with the beat of his wings. What's mesmerizing isn't just how widespread this myth is, it's how eerily consistent the details remain. From the Finns to the Phoenicians, cultures who never met described the cosmos as something born, not built. Archaeologists have unearthed egg-shaped artifacts in Neolithic graves, carved with spirals mimicking galaxies, hinting that this idea might be far older than written history. But why an egg? Think about it. It's the perfect symbol, self-contained yet full of potential, fragile yet capable of birthing unimaginable complexity. Our ancestors didn't just see a metaphor, they saw the universe's blueprint, hidden in something as humble as a shell. Here's where it gets even stranger. Modern cosmology describes the early universe as a singularity, an infinitely dense point that expanded rapidly, almost like, well, an egg cracking open. Coincidence, perhaps. But when you consider how many creation myths also speak of a world axis, or cosmic tree structures startlingly similar to our modern understanding of galactic filaments, it makes you wonder, were these stories just poetic guesses, or did they glimpse something science is only now beginning to name? Now imagine the night sky not as a void, but as a river of milk, divine, life-giving, flowing from the udders of a celestial cow. To the ancient Egyptians, this wasn't poetry, it was cosmology. The goddess Hathor, often depicted as a cow or a woman with cow's ears, wasn't just a deity of love and music, she was the Milky Way itself, her body arching across the heavens, nourishing the world below. Temples dedicated to her were designed with precise alignments to catch the first light of Sirius, the star Egyptians called Sopdet, whose rising signaled the Nile's annual flood. This wasn't random symbolism, it was a sacred map linking earthly survival to cosmic cycles, but Hathor's role went deeper than mere mythology. In the Book of the Dead, she's described as the mistress of the West, guiding souls to the afterlife with a cow's gentle strength. Her milk wasn't just sustenance, it was transformation. Archaeologists have found murals where pharaohs suckle from her udders, a metaphor for receiving divine wisdom and immortality. And here's the astonishing part. Recent studies suggest the Dendera temple complex, dedicated to Hathor, aligns with the Milky Way's brightest region during winter solstice, as if her celestial form was mirrored in stone. What makes this myth so compelling is how it intertwines the practical and the profound. The Nile's floods fed crops, and Hathor's milk symbolized that abundance, but it also reflected a sophisticated understanding of astronomy. The Egyptians didn't just see patterns in the stars, they saw a living, breathing universe where gods and natural forces were inseparable. Modern stargazers might not worship celestial cows, but we still trace our origins to that same Milky Way, still search for meaning in its swirling light. Perhaps the ancients knew something we're only now remembering, that the cosmos isn't just above us, it's within us, woven into the very stories that make us human. High above the frozen lands of the Norse, where the northern lights twist like serpents in the sky, there stood a tree so vast its roots drank from the wells of creation itself. This was Yggdrasil, the cosmic ash tree whose branches cradled the 9 realms from Asgard, home of the gods, to the frostbitten wastes of Niflheim. But here's what most miss: Yggdrasil wasn't just a myth. It was a celestial map, a living axis where time and space intertwined. Odin himself hung for 9 nights from its limbs, sacrificing an eye to gain wisdom from the well beneath its roots. And that well, it wasn't just water. The Norse called it Mimisbrunner, a pool of liquid memory guarded by the head of Mimir, whose decapitated skull whispered secrets of the past and future. Every drop was a story, every ripple a prophecy. What's astonishing is how this Norse vision mirrors otherworld trees across continents. The Siberian Evenk people spoke of Lucan, a towering larch whose roots held the underworld, while its crown brushed the stars. The Maya depicted Wakachan, a sacred ceiba tree with roots deep in Xibalba, the realm of the dead. Even Hinduism's Ashvatha, described in the Bhagavad Gita as an upside-down tree with roots in heaven, echoes this motif. But why would cultures separated by oceans and epochs share such strikingly similar imagery? One theory points to the auroras, those shimmering curtains of light that ancient peoples might have seen as celestial branches or roots. Others suggest comets, with their long, tree-like tails, could have inspired these visions of a pillar connecting earth and sky. Now consider this: modern astrophysics describes the universe as a web of galaxy clusters, strung along filaments of dark matter, a structure hauntingly reminiscent of Yggdrasil's roots and branches. The Norse didn't have telescopes, but their poets spoke of Ratatoskr, a squirrel running messages up and down the tree, mirroring our understanding of cosmic energy flows. And when Ragnarok, the doom of the gods, arrives, Yggdrasil shudders but survives, just as the universe persists through cycles of destruction and rebirth. Coincidence maybe, but perhaps our ancestors saw deeper into the fabric of reality than we've given them credit for, using myths not just to explain the world, but to map its hidden architecture. The next time you gaze at the stars, try picturing them not as distant points, but as leaves on an endless tree, one whose roots might just touch the very edges of existence. Look up at a full moon on a clear night, and you might notice something peculiar. Those shadowy patches on its surface aren't random. To the ancient Chinese, they formed the silhouette of a rabbit, tirelessly pounding herbs with a mortar and pestle. This wasn't just a whimsical idea. The Jade Rabbit, or Yutu, was said to be the companion of Chang, the moon goddess who drank the elixir of immortality. Legends say the rabbit wasn't always there. It leaped onto the moon as a reward for an act of selflessness. When three sages disguised as hungry beggars asked animals for food, only the rabbit, lacking provisions, threw itself into their fire to offer its own flesh. Touched by its sacrifice, the sages placed its image on the moon, where it forever works to create medicines for the gods. Across the Pacific, the Maya saw the same dark patches, but wove them into a very different story. For them, the moon wasn't just a celestial backdrop, it was a realm where the hero twins of the Popol Vuh outsmarted the lords of the underworld. After their victory, one twin ascended to become the sun, while the other, less celebrated, became the moon. And that rabbit, it was his divine companion, placed there as a reminder of humility. The Maya even linked the rabbit's appearance to agricultural cycles, interpreting its shape as a sign to plant crops or prepare for rain. Codices depict the moon rabbit holding a blade of maize, tying its myth directly to survival. What's fascinating isn't just the shared imagery, it's how both cultures connected lunar phases to life on Earth. In China, the rabbit's mortar symbolized the cyclical grinding of time, its herbs representing healing and renewal. Mid-autumn festival celebrations still feature mooncakes stamped with the rabbit's image, echoing ancient beliefs in the moon's nourishing power. Meanwhile, Maya astronomers tracked lunar cycles with precision, aligning ceremonies with the rabbit's visibility to ensure bountiful harvests. Here's the twist: modern science reveals those lunar rabbits are vast plains of hardened lava, yet both cultures separated by an ocean saw not chaos, but purpose. Perhaps it's no coincidence that rabbits, animals associated with fertility in both regions, became lunar symbols, or that the moon's waxing and waning mirrored the rhythms of planting and harvest. These myths weren't just stories, they were frameworks for understanding time, growth, and the fragile balance between humanity and the cosmos. The next time you spot the moon's shadows, remember, you're not just seeing rock and dust. You're glimpsing a tapestry of meaning woven by civilizations who looked up and saw a rabbit, not by chance, but because the universe itself seemed to whisper the same story to souls worlds apart. While Western astronomers connected the stars with lines to form heroes and beasts, indigenous Australians saw something far more profound in the dark spaces between them. Stretching across the Milky Way, from the Coalsack Nebula near the Southern Cross to the celestial river of Scorpius, lies the Emu in the sky, not a constellation of stars, but a silhouette of cosmic dust. To the Aboriginal peoples, this wasn't just a shape, it was a celestial clock. When the emu's body appeared high in the night sky during April, it signaled the start of the egg-laying season, guiding hunters to nests hidden in the scrublands. By October, as its form stretched horizontally along the horizon, it warned of leaner times when the emus grew thin and hunting required patience. What makes this myth extraordinary isn't just its practicality, it's the way it flips Western stargazing on its head. Where Greek or Babylonian myths often focused on bright stars, Aboriginal astronomers mapped the voids, the negative spaces where light faded into stories. The emu's curved neck and round body emerge from the Milky Way's shadowy lanes, a masterpiece painted in absence rather than presence. Rock engravings in New South Wales, some thousands of years old, depict this same emu alongside earthly counterparts, proving how deeply the sky and land were intertwined. But here's the revelation: modern astrophysics confirms the emu's body is made of dark nebulae, dense clouds of gas and dust where new stars are born. The same regions dismissed by early European astronomers as empty gaps were, to Aboriginal cultures, vibrant with meaning. Seasonal shifts in the emu's posture even correlate with monsoon rains and animal migrations, showing how this myth encoded generations of ecological wisdom. Compare this to Orion, a Western constellation of glittering stars representing a hunter. Both myths involve tracking, but where Orion's tale is one of conquest, the emu speaks of harmony, a reminder to take only what's needed. While Greek constellations froze heroes in eternal poses, the emu moves and changes, its story evolving with the land it mirrors. Perhaps the most poignant detail lies in the emu's feet, which some clans say touch the horizon when the bird is drinking from water holes below. It's a breathtaking image, the sky and earth united in a single cycle, each reflecting the other. In an age where light pollution obscures the Milky Way's dark patches, this myth challenges us to look differently, not just at the stars, but at the spaces between them, where ancient wisdom still whispers. Long before the planets settled into their orbits, the Babylonians whispered of a time when nothing existed except two primordial beings, Apsu, the fresh waters, and Tiamat, the saltwater chaos dragon whose body churned with storms. Their union birthed generations of gods, but when these younger deities grew too loud, Apsu plotted to destroy them. The wise god thwarted him, leaving Tiamat to unleash her wrath. She summoned an army of monsters, birthing venomous serpents and rabid dogs from her own flesh, twisting the cosmos into turmoil. Enter Marduk, the storm god, who rode forth on his chariot of clouds to face her. Their battle wasn't just myth, it was written in the stars. The Enuma Elish, Babylon's creation epic, describes how Marduk shattered Tiamat's skull with his thunder mace, splitting her carcass like a clamshell to craft the heavens and earth from her ribs, her tears becoming the Tigris and Euphrates. But here's what chills the spine. Modern astronomers note how eerily this mirrors planetary formation. Tiamat's name shares roots with Tiamtum, the Babylonian word for the sea, but also resembles Teham, the Hebrew term for the abyss. Some scholars suggest her corpse's division echoes the ancient collision theory of how a protoplanet named Theia might have struck early Earth, ejecting debris that formed our moon. Even her serpentine offspring find parallels in the asteroid belt, remnants of cosmic violence, and when Babylonian priests tracked eclipses, they saw not just celestial mechanics, but Marduk's eternal victory replaying across the sky. Clay tablets from Uruk record eclipses as Tiamat swallowing the sun, her defeated spirit still writhing in the darkness. What's haunting is how the Enuma Elish encodes celestial observations. Marduk's victory was celebrated during Akitu, the New Year festival timed to the spring equinox, when the constellation Draco symbolizing Tiamat dipped below the horizon. The myth wasn't just storytelling, it was celestial cartography, mapping gods onto planetary movements, and while science demystifies eclipses today, the emotional truth remains. Staring at the moon's shadow blotting out the sun, it's hard not to feel a primal echo of Tiamat's rage, her chaos momentarily resurrected before order prevails once more. Perhaps that's why this myth endured. It doesn't just explain creation, it captures the tension between chaos and cosmos, the fragile balance we still navigate. Every eclipse, every storm, every discovery of ancient asteroids whispers her name, a reminder that even in our ordered universe, the dragon's shadow lingers. High in the night sky, clustered together like a handful of scattered diamonds, the Pleiades have captivated watchers for millennia, but to the ancient Greeks, these stars weren't just a celestial wonder, they were a tragedy frozen in time. The story begins with 7 sisters, daughters of the Titan Atlas and the sea nymph Pleione, whose beauty was unmatched under the heavens. Their laughter filled the forests, their grace drawing the eyes of gods and mortals alike. But among those who watched was Orion, the mighty hunter, whose obsession with the sisters grew until it became a relentless pursuit. He chased them across meadows and mountains, his footsteps shaking the earth, until Zeus himself intervened. In one version of the myth, the sisters pleaded for mercy, and the sky god transformed them into stars, placing them just out of Orion's reach. Yet even now, as the constellation Orion rises in the night, he forever trails behind them, his cosmic hunt eternally unfulfilled. What's remarkable isn't just the tale itself, it's how this myth served as both poetry and practical astronomy. The Pleiades cluster, visible to the naked eye, appears to move westward as Orion follows, an annual celestial dance that mirrored the story. Greek sailors relied on this movement, using the sisters' position to mark the start of the sailing season when they first appeared before dawn. Hesiod, the famed poet of antiquity, wrote in Works and Days that their rising signaled the time to set sail, while their disappearance in autumn warned of stormy seas. Farmers too watched for them, planting crops when the Pleiades climbed high and harvesting as they faded, but the sisters' influence stretched far beyond Greece. Polynesian navigators called the cluster Matariki, linking its appearance to the new year and the promise of abundant harvests. The Maori believed these stars were a mother surrounded by her daughters, their brightness foretelling the season's bounty. In Japan, they bore the name Subaru, literally, to unite, symbolizing the harmony of the celestial family. Even the Aztecs tracked their movements, associating them with the fire festival of Quecoli. Here's where science and myth collide in the most haunting way. Modern astronomy reveals the Pleiades are young, hot stars, born from the same cosmic cloud barely 100 million years ago, a blink in the universe's timeline. Their blue glow comes from the reflection of starlight off interstellar dust, remnants of the very nebula that birthed them, and though they seem tightly knit, these sisters are drifting apart, their gravitational bonds slowly unraveling over millions of years. In a sense, the Greeks were right, the Pleiades are fleeing, not from Orion, but from time itself, destined to scatter until their shapes are unrecognizable to future sky watchers. Perhaps that's why this myth resonates so deeply. It captures something universal about the human gaze, our longing to find stories in the stars, to anchor fleeting lives to something eternal. The next time you spot those 7 shimmering points, remember you're not just seeing distant suns, you're witnessing an ancient drama, one that still guides, still inspires, and still reminds us that even the heavens are woven with tales of love, loss, and the relentless passage of time. In the endless twilight of the Arctic winter, where the sun vanishes for months and the moon casts long blue shadows across the ice, the Inuit tell of 2 siblings locked in an eternal dance. The sun sister Melina and the moon brother Anningen were once inseparable, sharing a home where light and darkness balanced in perfect harmony, but one fateful night, everything changed. Some versions say Anningen, consumed by jealousy, attacked his sister in the dark. Others whisper of a forbidden love torn apart by shame. Whatever the cause, Melina fled across the sky, her torch blazing as she became the sun itself. Ever since, Anningen has chased her with desperate hunger, forgetting even to eat, which explains why the moon grows thin before vanishing completely each month, only to return renewed when he regains his strength. This isn't just a story, it's a celestial almanac carved into oral tradition. During the polar night, when the sun disappears below the horizon for weeks, elders describe Anningen's triumph as he finally catches Melina, bringing the brief, eerie darkness of a solar eclipse. Yet she always escapes, her return heralding the first sunrise after the long winter, a moment celebrated with drum dances and feasts. The myth even encodes lunar phases. The full moon is Anningen at his strongest, while the waning crescent shows him gaunt with exhaustion, his face hollowed out by starvation. What's breathtaking is how precisely this mirrors Arctic astronomy. Unlike equatorial cultures that see the sun and moon rise and set predictably, Inuit observers witness celestial bodies skimming the horizon in strange, elongated paths. The sun's months-long absence isn't just backdrop to the myth, it's the very reason the story exists, a way to make sense of a sky that behaves unlike anywhere else on Earth. Petroglyphs found in Nunavut depict the siblings as concentric circles, some with radiating lines like sunbeams, suggesting the tale stretches back thousands of years. Compare this to Japan's sun goddess Amaterasu, who hides in a cave until lured out by laughter, a myth tied to seasonal light changes, but without the Inuit's stark precision. Here, the storytelling doubles as survival science. When elders say Melina's path grows lower in autumn, they're teaching when to store blubber for winter. When they describe Anningen's face darkening, they're tracking lunar months for migration routes. modern researchers have found Inuit lunar calendars carved into walrus tusks, aligning perfectly with the brothers' cyclical hunger. Perhaps most poignant is how the myth acknowledges cosmic imbalance. Unlike Greek or Norse tales where order eventually triumphs, this story accepts perpetual chase, a reflection of life in a land where light and darkness aren't daily visitors, but seasonal forces to be endured. The next time you see the moon trailing the sun across the sky, remember, you're glimpsing an ancient Arctic drama, one where every phase, every eclipse, whispers of a brother's regret and a sister who refuses to look back. When the sun vanished from the sky over ancient Japan, the people didn't just fear darkness, they feared the unraveling of the world itself. At the heart of this terror stood Amaterasu, the radiant sun goddess who ruled the heavens from her celestial loom, weaving light into every corner of creation. According to the Kojiki, Japan's oldest chronicle, her wrath was legendary. When her storm god brother Susanoo ravaged her rice fields and hurled a flayed horse into her sacred weaving hall, Amaterasu retreated into the Ama no Iwado, the heavenly rock cave, plunging the world into endless night. The gods tried everything to lure her out. Roosters crowed at false dawn, jewels and mirrors were hung from sekaki trees, but it was the goddess Uzum's riotous dance, so outrageous it shook the heavens with laughter, that finally made Amaterasu peek out. The moment sunlight spilled through the crack, the god Tajikarau seized her arm and yanked her into the world once more, restoring order to the cosmos. This myth wasn't just folklore, it was political bedrock. The Yamato emperors claimed direct descent from Amaterasu, using her divine lineage to justify their rule. Sun mirrors, replicas of the one used to lure her from the cave, became imperial regalia, symbols of a monarch's sacred duty to maintain cosmic harmony. Eclipse rituals mirrored the Ama no Iwado story. Priests banged drums and shouted to scare away the darkness, reenacting Uzum's dance to ensure the sun's return. Even the shrine at Ise, rebuilt every 20 years to pristine purity, echoes Amaterasu's cyclical renewal of light. Now, cross the Pacific to the Andes, where the Inca sun god Inti wielded power of a very different kind. Unlike Amaterasu's emotional retreat, Inti's disappearance during eclipses was seen as a mortal crisis, a sign of his displeasure with human failing. The Sapa Inca, believed to be Inti's son on earth, would fast and offer sacrifices, sometimes even executing prisoners to appease his angry father. Where Amaterasu's myth centered on deception and laughter, Inti's rituals were starkly pragmatic. Gold considered the sun's sweat was piled high in Coricancha, the sun temple, while prized llamas clad in jeweled blankets were sacrificed to feed the starving deity. The contrast couldn't be starker. Amaterasu's eclipse was a divine tantrum soothed by communal joy. Inti's was a ruler's failure demanding blood, yet both myths reveal how deeply solar worship was tied to power. The Inca calendar, carved into stone at Machu Picchu, tracked solstices with precision, aligning windows to funnel sunlight onto sacred stones during Inti Raymi, the Sun Festival. Similarly, Japan's imperial enthronement ceremony, the Daijusai, recreated Amaterasu's first meal after leaving the cave, binding each new emperor to her legacy. Modern science explains eclipses as mere celestial mechanics, but these ancient rituals whisper a deeper truth. When the sun vanished, so did humanity's certainty. Whether through laughter or sacrifice, our ancestors fought back the dark not just with myth, but with the unshakable belief that their actions could sway the cosmos itself. In the frozen mists of Celtic lore, where mountains rise like the bones of giants, there stalks a figure more ancient than time itself, the Kaleech, the Veiled One. This wasn't just a winter goddess, she was the sculptor of landscapes, the weaver of storms, and the keeper of a celestial secret tied to 3 bright stars. While Greek eyes saw Orion's belt as a hunter's trophy, the Gaels saw it as the Kaleech's chisel, its 3 points etching glens and fjords into the earth with each swing of her hammer. Legends say she carried stones in her apron, dropping them to form islands like the Scottish Hebrides, while her tears froze into logs, but her power wasn't confined to Earth. When the skies blazed with comets, the Celts whispered it was the K-Leech riding the wind, her cloak billowing behind her like a cosmic brushstroke. What chills the spine is how precisely this myth aligns with geology. The K-Leech's association with glacial activity carving valleys, grinding rock, mirrors the last ice age's impact on the British Isles. Folktales from Ireland to the Highlands describe her striking the ground with her staff to summon frost, a poetic echo of permafrost's grip. Even the timing of her reign fits. She's said to rule from Samhain Halloween to Beltane May Day, coinciding with the darkest, coldest months when Orion dominates the northern sky. Archaeologists have found Neolithic carvings in Ireland's Boyne Valley depicting a hag-like figure beside star clusters, suggesting her celestial link stretches back over 5,000 years. Now shift your gaze to those comet sightings. The Gaelic term Rúilteann Smuail, the sweeping stars, referred to comets, believed to be the K-Leech's broom sweeping away the old year. The Great Comet of 1861, visible for months, sparked panic prayers across Scotland as villagers feared she'd unleashed her wrath. But here's the twist: modern astronomers note that comet debris fields often peak during winter meteor showers, like the Urshids in December, timing that would have reinforced her connection to celestial omens. Perhaps most haunting is how the K-Leech defies simple categorization. She's both destroyer and protector, freezing the land but also guarding sacred wells that never ice over. In the Isle of Man, fishermen invoked her to calm storms, while in Wales she was Blodeuwed's darker counterpart, a goddess punished for betrayal by being transformed into an owl, her cries echoing the winter wind. This duality reflects the Celtic view of the cosmos, brutal yet cyclical, where death nourishes rebirth. So the next time Orion's belt gleams over a frost-laced field, look closer. Those stars might just be the K-Leech's tools, still shaping the world beneath them, while far beyond, a streaking comet carries her whisper, a reminder that winter, like all things, is both an end and a beginning. Across the vast Pacific, where waves carry the memory of 1,000 voyages, the Polynesians tell of a hero who dared to lasso the sun itself. Maui, the trickster demigod, watched as the days raced by too quickly. Children barely had time to fish or women to weave before darkness fell. Unlike Greek heroes who sought glory, Maui's quest was born of practicality. Armed with ropes woven from his sister's hair and the jawbone of his ancestor, he journeyed to the volcano Haleakala, the House of the Sun, where the celestial fire dipped closest to Earth. As the sun climbed the horizon, Maui hurled his ropes, snaring its burning limbs like a wild stallion. The struggle was cosmic. The sun roared, turning the sky molten, but Maui held fast, striking a bargain. In exchange for freedom, the sun would move slower across the sky, granting longer days for labor and laughter. This myth wasn't just fantasy, it was celestial physics encoded in oral tradition. Scholars note that Maui's act mirrors the sun's apparent slowdown during solstices, particularly in tropical latitudes where daylight shifts are subtle but critical. The choice of Haleakala is no accident either. Its summit sits above the clouds where volcanic haze often distorts the sun into a swollen, slow-moving orb at dawn, as if resisting its own path. Even the ropes hold meaning. Polynesian navigators used star paths and horizon markers like invisible threads to guide their canoes, suggesting Maui's lasso was a metaphor for humanity's attempt to harness the cosmos. But here's the twist: similar myths exist from the Maori of New Zealand to the Hawaiians. In Aotearoa, Maui's brothers beat the sun with clubs to weaken it, while Tongan versions describe him chaining the sun to a banyan tree. These variations may reflect local observations, perhaps prolonged volcanic sunsets in Hawaii, or the sharper solstice contrasts in New Zealand's higher latitudes. Petroglyphs found in Tahiti depict stylized suns with looping ropes around them, hinting at ritual retellings of the story. modern astronomers offer a poignant parallel. The Sun does in fact move slower against the stars during certain seasons due to Earth's elliptical orbit, a nuance ancient Polynesians couldn't have known, yet captured metaphorically. And those volcanic sunsets, they're caused by ash scattering light, stretching dusk into what would have seemed like Maui's hard-won gift. Perhaps the deepest truth lies in Maui's motivation. Unlike gods who manipulate the sky for power, he acted for his people's survival. His story embodies the Pacific worldview, not conquering nature, but negotiating with it, finding balance between human need and cosmic law. So the next time you watch a lingering sunset, remember, it might just be Maui's handiwork, a demigod's bargain still holding firm. Imagine a time before science explained eclipses when the sun vanished without warning, swallowed whole by some unseen force. In ancient India, the answer wasn't just a myth, it was a cosmic crime scene frozen in the sky. Enter Rahu and Ketu, the two halves of a demon whose insatiable hunger still darkens the heavens. Their story begins with the Samudra Manthan, the great churning of the ocean of milk, where gods and demons work together to extract the elixir of immortality. As the divine nectar surfaced, the demon Svarbhanu disguised himself as a god to steal a sip, but the sun and moon, ever vigilant, saw through his deception and alerted Lord Vishnu. With a single swing of his Sudarshana chakra, Vishnu severed Svarbhanu's head before the elixir could pass his throat, yet the nectar had already reached his lips, granting his disembodied head eternal life as Rahu, while his headless body became Ketu, the cometary shadow. Now here's where celestial mechanics collide with mythology. Enraged by the sun and moon's betrayal, Rahu and Ketu forever chase them across the sky. When Rahu's gaping mouth catches the sun or moon, we witness an eclipse. Vedic texts describe it as the demon finally devouring his enemies, only for them to slip free from his throatless body. But Ketu's role is just as fascinating. Unlike Rahu's violent hunger, Ketu represents the aftermath, the tale of the eclipse, the lingering darkness that influences Vedic astrology as a harbinger of chaos. Ancient astronomers called their intersecting paths the lunar nodes, marking where eclipses occur when the moon crosses the sun's plane. The brilliance of this myth lies in its precision. The nodes aren't physical objects, but mathematical points, yet Hindu cosmology visualizes them as tangible entities. Temple sculptures show Rahu as a serpent-headed figure swallowing a celestial disk, while Ketu appears as a smoke-like trail, whispering omens. Even today, devout Hindus observe fasts during eclipses, believing Rahu's poison taints food, but there's a stunning scientific parallel. Modern astronomy confirms eclipses happen only near the lunar nodes, just as the myth claimed. Yet the story doesn't end there. In Thai folklore, Rahu becomes Phra Rahu, his severed head dripping nectar that transforms into earthly gemstones. Tibetan Buddhism reveres him as a protector deity, his wrath redirected against ignorance. This adaptability reveals a deeper truth. Rahu and Ketu aren't just demons, they're mirrors reflecting humanity's fear of cosmic disorder and our endless attempt to name the unnamed forces steering our skies. So the next time the daylight dims, remember, you're not just witnessing celestial mechanics, you're seeing a demon's revenge play out across millennia, a myth as eternal as the nodes themselves. To the Aztecs, time wasn't linear, it moved in cosmic cycles, each marked by the rise and fall of a different sun. Their creation myth, preserved in the Codex Chimalpopoca, tells of 5 distinct ages, each destroyed by apocalyptic forces before being reborn anew. The first sun, Nahui Oslotl, was the era of the jaguar, a world where giant humans roamed until the sky itself collapsed, crushed under the weight of celestial jaguars that tore through the darkness to devour mankind. Only those who transformed into monkeys survived, clinging to the trees as the earth shattered beneath them. Next came Nahui Ehekatl, the son of wind, when hurricanes scoured the land so violently that people became flightless birds, their bodies battered into new forms. Then Nahuatl, the reign of fire sun, where volcanic fury rained burning pitch until survivors crawled underground, emerging as turkeys coated in ash. The fourth age, Nahuatl, ended in a great flood so catastrophic that the heavens themselves poured down for 52 years, turning humans into fish before the waters finally receded. These weren't just poetic disasters, they were mirrors of real ecological trauma. Drought cycles recorded in lake sediments match the reign of fire era, while ice cores show volcanic activity aligning with the flood narrative. But here's where the myth becomes revolutionary. Each destruction coincided with the end of a 52-year calendar cycle, the Xiumulpilli, when Aztec priests performed the new fire ceremony atop Mount Huaxtlan. If the stars aligned correctly, they'd light a sacred blaze in a prisoner's chest, ensuring the sun would rise again, fail, and the world would descend into eternal darkness, a belief rooted in Mesoamerican astronomy. The fifth sun, Nahuatl, our current era, was said to have begun when the gods sacrificed themselves at Teotihuacan, throwing their bodies into a divine bonfire to birth the sun of movement. Its glyph 4 spirals around an eye symbolizes earthquakes, the force destined to end this age when the stars rebel. Modern archaeology reveals chilling parallels. The fifth sun's creation myth matches the zenith of Teotihuacan's power around 2,000 years ago, when its pyramids were aligned to the Pleiades, the constellation believed to herald each new cycle. Even the predicted earthquakes resonate. Seismic studies show the Valley of Mexico suffers catastrophic quakes every few millennia, but the true genius lies in how the Aztecs encoded celestial math into their mythology. The 5 suns represent the 5 visible planets, each linked to a direction and element. Venus, as the evening star, was Quetzalcoatl descending to the underworld, while Mars symbolized the war god Huitzilopochtli's fiery return. What makes this myth endure isn't just its poetic violence, it's the profound understanding of cosmic impermanence. Unlike Western apocalypses with final judgments, the Aztec vision offers renewal. Each destruction clears space for rebirth, a concept mirrored in their agriculture, where milpas were burned between plantings to enrich the soil. The next time you feel the ground tremble or see a drought-parched field, remember you're living in Nahuatlan's fragile grace, one earthquake away from becoming the ancestors of whatever comes next. Deep in the cliffs of Mali, where the Bandiagara escarpment cuts through the Sahel like a scar, the Dogon people have guarded a secret for centuries, a knowledge so precise, it defies explanation. Their oral traditions speak of Sirius not as a single star, but as a triple system, with the invisible companion they call Potolo, the smallest seed, orbiting its brighter sibling every 50 years. What's astonishing isn't just the accuracy. Modern astronomy confirmed Sirius B, a white dwarf, in 1862, but that the Dogon described its elliptical orbit and density centuries before telescopes could prove it. Even more baffling, their legends claim this wisdom came from amphibious beings called the Namo, who descended from the sky in a spinning arc, bringing cosmic truths to their ancestors. Now shift your gaze north to the banks of the Nile, where the star the Egyptians called Sopdet, our Sirius, held even greater power. Temple reliefs at Dendera show Sopdet as a cow with a star between her horns, her heliacal rising marking the Nile's annual flood. But here's where it gets eerie. Egyptian star clocks, carved into coffin lids as early as 2100 BCE, track Sirius's motion with precision, aligning temples like Abu Simbel so its light would illuminate the innermost sanctums on specific feast days. The difference between these two cultures, the Dogon's knowledge feels inexplicably ahead of its time, while Egypt's was meticulously documented in hieroglyphs and architecture. The controversy erupted when anthropologists suggested the Dogon might have learned of Sirius B from Western visitors in the 1930s, yet their oral traditions predate colonial contact by generations. Meanwhile, Egyptologists note that Sopdet's hieroglyph appears in pyramid texts from 2400 BCE, linking her rising to the resurrection of Osiris in a celestial dance of death and renewal. Perhaps the most haunting parallel lies in the numbers. The Dogon Sirius orbits Sirius every 50 years. The Egyptians celebrated their 50-year Sed festivals, renewing the pharaoh's power in sync with Sirius's cycles. Coincidence or evidence of a shared, ancient astronomy lost to time? Modern astrophysics reveals Sirius B's actual orbit is 50.1 years, a margin so slim it chills the spine. Whether divine revelation or forgotten science, these myths remind us that the stars have always been more than lights in the sky. They've been keepers of time, harbingers of change, and silent witnesses to humanity's eternal quest to decode the cosmos. The next time Sirius flickers on the horizon, remember, you're seeing what Dogon elders and Egyptian priests once saw, a beacon bridging Earth and the infinite. Between the first blush of dawn and the last sigh of dusk, Slavic legends whisper of two sisters who stand eternal watch over the cosmos. The Zoria Utriniae of the morning and Zoria Vecherniae of the evening are more than just personifications of light. They are the celestial gatekeepers, tasked with restraining the apocalyptic hound Simargl, a chained beast whose breaking free would herald the end of time. Each day as the sisters pass their vigil from one to the other at the horizon, they tighten or loosen his bonds, their dance mirroring the cyclical rise and fall of Venus in its dual guise as the morning and evening star. What makes their myth so captivating is how it intertwines astronomy with existential stakes. Unlike Greek or Roman Venus deities focused on love, the Zoria sisters embody a primal vigilance. Folk charms invoke them as protectors. Mothers would whisper their names over cradles, weaving their symbols into embroidery to ward off nightmares. Archaeologists have unearthed 7th-century Slavic amulets depicting two women flanking a star, their arms raised like the crescent horns of Venus at its brightest. Even the timing of their rituals held celestial precision. Offerings were made at Zoria, that liminal moment just before sunrise or after sunset, when the sisters were said to be most receptive. But here's where the myth deepens. The chains holding Simargl don't just represent random chaos, they're tied to the constellation Ursa Minor, which Slavic astronomers called the stake, anchoring the cosmic hound. When Polaris, the North Star, shifted slightly over centuries due to axial precession, some scholars argue it sparked apocalyptic fears reflected in later folklore about the chains fraying. Meanwhile, the sisters' link to Venus isn't merely poetic. Ancient Slavs tracked Venus's 8-year cycle, noting how its disappearance and reappearance aligned with planting and harvest seasons. In Belarusian tradition, spotting the morning star after a long absence meant it was time to bless the fields, while its evening sighting signaled the start of nocturnal storytelling. The Zoria's duality also reveals a nuanced view of time. Unlike linear Western eschatology, their myth presents apocalypse as a constant negotiation, a balance maintained daily rather than a singular event. This mirrors the Slavic concept of pravda versus krivda, cosmic order versus chaos, with the sisters as living fulcrums. Even their names hold layered meaning. Zoria derives from zervo, meaning both glow and alarm, a fitting paradox for deities who are both comfort and warning. Modern stargazers might no longer fear Simargl's chains snapping, but the sisters' legacy endures. Their symbols appear in Ukrainian folk art to this day, and their names surface in Slavic neo-pagan rituals as reminders that every dawn and dusk isn't just a transition, it's a fleeting moment when the universe holds its breath, waiting for two sisters to fulfill their ancient pact. Thunder cracked like the snap of divine bones when Zu the storm bird spread his wings over ancient Mesopotamia. This wasn't just any deity, he was a creature of chaos, a feathered tempest who dared to steal the tablet of destinies from the god Enlil himself. Carved with the universe's sacred laws, the tablet held the power to reshape fate, and Zu's theft plunged the cosmos into turmoil. Unlike Greek Prometheus, who gifted fire to humanity out of compassion, Zeus' motives were raw ambition. He didn't seek to elevate mortals, he wanted to unseat the gods, perching atop the divine hierarchy like a vulture on a carcass. The myth's brilliance lies in its celestial breadcrumbs. Zeus' name shares roots with the Akkadian word for storm cloud, and his wingspan blotted out the sun, an eerie parallel to meteor showers streaking across the Mesopotamian night. Cuneiform tablets describe his flight as a blade of wind cutting the sky, leaving fire in its wake. Could these accounts record ancient sightings of particularly vivid meteors? The Epic of Zu, etched onto clay in the 2nd millennium BC, details how the hero Ninurta finally hunted him down, launching arrows that split the heavens like lightning. The battle's imagery mirrors meteorite impacts. Ninurta's arrows shatter Zeus' wings, sending feathers of flaming debris raining onto the plains below. But here's the twist that binds myth to reality. Modern astronomers note that the torrid meteor stream, visible over Mesopotamia every autumn, peaks during the season of harvest storms. To a society that saw omens in every atmospheric shift, a blazing fireball amid thunderheads might easily become a divine thief stealing the sky's secrets. Even Zeus' association with the Tablet of Destinies resonates. Babylonian astrologers used similar tablets to predict celestial events, their calculations as precious as the god's own decrees. What makes Zeus' story endure isn't just its drama, it's how it reflects humanity's oldest struggle, the tension between order and chaos. When Zeus seized the tablet, the winds howled untamed, rivers reversed course, and stars wandered from their paths. His defeat didn't just restore balance, it reaffirmed the Mesopotamian worldview, where even the cosmos obeyed divinely ordained laws. The next time you see a meteor streak through a storm-lit sky, remember, you might be witnessing Zeus' ghost, still racing to reclaim what he lost. Long before the Appalachians wore their name, when the earth was soft as wet clay, the Cherokee tell of a colossal buzzard whose wings shaped the very bones of the land. This was the Great Buzzard, sent by the Creator to dry the newly formed world with his wings, but exhaustion overtook him as he flew low over the unset terrain, his tired strokes gouging deep gashes where his wingtips dragged to valleys that would one day cradle rivers, their curves mirroring the arc of his feathers. Where he plunged downward in weariness, the mountains buckled upward, creating the jagged ridges that now stretch from Georgia to Maine. What makes this myth extraordinary isn't just its poetry, it's how uncannily it aligns with geology. The Appalachian Range, one of the oldest on Earth, bears scars of titanic forces. Folded rock layers tell of continents colliding, while erosion carved gaps like the Cumberland and Chattooga River gorges precisely the kinds of formations the Great Buzzard's wings might leave. Paleontologists have even found fossils of Teratornes, a prehistoric raptor with a 20-foot wingspan, in the very regions where Cherokee oral traditions flourished. Could sightings of these massive birds have inspired the legend, or did the ancestors of the Cherokee witness seismic upheavals, interpreting quakes as wing beats from the spirit world? Dig deeper, and the connections multiply. Cherokee elders describe the buzzard's final crash landing near what's now Hot Springs, North Carolina, a region laced with geothermal vents where steam rises like the bird's last labored breath. Modern geologists note the area sits atop fault lines that once trembled with activity, their shifting plates potentially echoing the myth's violent terrain shaping. Even the buzzard's association with death carries layered meaning. Vultures symbolize renewal in Cherokee cosmology, their scavenging cleansing the land just as the bird's wings purified the primal earth. Petroglyphs near the Little Tennessee River depict winged figures beside zigzagging lines. Some scholars argue these represent both the buzzard and the region's lightning-fast flash floods, further binding celestial myth to terrestrial trauma. Now consider this: the Appalachians are shrinking by a fraction of an inch each year, worn down by time just as the Great Buzzard wore himself out. The myth doesn't just explain origins, it foreshadows entropy, a reminder that even mountains bow to cycles. Next time you hike those misty blue ridges, run your fingers along the sandstone folds, you might just feel the echo of feathers. In the icy heart of Finnish legend, where the northern lights flicker like a smith's forge, stands the Sampo, a mythical artifact so powerful it could grind out anything the world desired. Forged by the blacksmith god Ilmarinen at the behest of the cunning witch Louhi, this wasn't just any mill. Its 3 spinning wheels produced salt to season the earth, grain to feed the people, and most astonishing of all, gold to form the stars themselves. The Kalevala, Finland's national epic, describes its lid as a rainbow, its pillars as cosmic pillars, and its grinding as the very pulse of creation. But here's where the myth turns from wonder to warfare. When Louhi stole the Sampo, hiding it inside a copper mountain, the hero Väinämöinen and his companions sailed across primordial seas to reclaim it, sparking a battle so fierce the mill shattered into pieces. Now these aren't just fragments of folklore, they're celestial blueprints. Scholars note how the Sampo's 3 functions mirror the 3 realms of Finnish cosmology: the heavens gold/stars, the middle world grain, and the underworld salt. Its theft and destruction may encode ancient observations of celestial mechanics, specifically the precession of the equinoxes. The Sampo's location in the north, guarded by Louhi's realm of Pohjola, literally the north, aligns with Polaris, the pivot around which the night sky appears to rotate. Just as the stolen Sampo's broken pieces scattered, so too do stars appear to drift from their positions over millennia, their slow procession mirroring the myth's imagery of cosmic disruption. Archaeology adds another layer. Bronze Age artifacts found in Finland depict spiral patterns reminiscent of the Sampo's grinding mechanism, while ancient trade routes trace paths similar to Väinämöinen's journey, hinting that the myth might preserve memory of real conflicts over scarce resources like salt and grain. Some linguists even suggest Sampo shares roots with words for pillar and axis, reinforcing its role as a world tree-like anchor between realms. What makes this myth unforgettable is its duality, a story of abundance and loss, creation and theft, where even the stars owe their brilliance to a shattered machine. The next time you see the northern lights ripple across the sky, imagine them as sparks from Ilmarinen's forge, still echoing the Sampo's last, fateful spin. Beneath the sprawling canopies of sacred groves in Yorubaland, where the whispering leaves carry messages from the divine, the Orisha Orunmila waits not with a crystal ball or a deck of cards, but with a constellation of 16 palm nuts and a mind attuned to the language of the stars. Known as the witness of fate, Orunmila's wisdom stems from the very foundation of Yoruba cosmology, the belief that the heavens are a vast, open book, and every star a syllable in its celestial script. His divination system, Ifa, isn't just fortune-telling, it's an intricate dialogue between earth and sky, where priests trained for decades memorize thousands of verses tied to specific star alignments. When a seeker asks a question, the diviner casts the palm nuts, reading their patterns like an astronomer decoding the night, each combination linked to ancient odes, poetic stanzas that hold the keys to destiny itself. Now leap across the Mediterranean to the misty slopes of Mount Parnassus, where the oracle of Delphi once drew breathless crowds. Here, prophecy didn't come from nuts or stars, but from the very earth, a crevice in the rock exhaling fumes that sent the Pythia into a trance. Yet Delphi's magic was no less celestial. The temple's orientation aligned with the Pleiades, and the Pythia only prophesied during auspicious lunar phases, her utterances thought to channel Apollo's solar wisdom. Unlike Ifa's methodical verses, her answers were cryptic, open to interpretation by priests who studied the flight patterns of birds or the rustling of sacred laurel leaves, methods tied to the rhythms of the seasons and the stars above. The contrast between these systems is striking. Ifa relies on precision, a diviner's years of study, the exact count of nuts, the memorized odes passed down through generations. Delphi thrived on chaos, the Pythia's frenzied words a stark contrast to the Yoruba's structured stanzas, but dig deeper and you'll find a shared thread. Both systems saw celestial bodies as active participants in human fate, not distant lights but living guides. The Yoruba believed Orunmila descended from the heavens with the secrets of creation. The Greeks called Apollo the sun god, his chariot dragging the sun across the sky as surely as his oracle dragged truth from the ether. Archaeology adds another layer. Excavations at Ife, the spiritual heart of Yorubaland, reveal astrolabe-like artifacts that may have been used to track star cycles for divination. Meanwhile, gas analyses at Delphi confirm the presence of ethylene in the temple's bedrock, a vapor known to induce trances, but also linked to the cyclical rise of subterranean gases, possibly synchronized with lunar tides. Both cultures, separated by an ocean, wove celestial mechanics into their sacred practices, blurring the line between astronomy and prophecy. What endures isn't just the methods, but the questions they sought to answer. A Yoruba diviner might recite an odu about the star Asu Tutu, warning of a crossroads ahead. The Pythia might hiss of a king's downfall under a waning moon. Both understood that the stars weren't just markers of time, they were mirrors of human struggle, reflecting our oldest fears and desires back at us. The next time you glance at the night sky, ask yourself, are you looking at cold, distant suns, or the same flickering guides that once whispered to oracles and diviners, linking Earth to the infinite? Perhaps Orunmila and the Pythia would agree the answers were always written above us, we just needed the right language to read them. High on the Tibetan plateau, where the air is so thin it feels like breathing starlight, there gallops a creature woven from the very fabric of the sky, the lungta, or wind horse. This isn't just any mythical steed, its hooves never touch the earth, its mane streams with the four winds, and its back carries the wishes of millions on fluttering prayer flags. To spot a lungta isn't merely good fortune, it's an encounter with the soul of the Himalayas, a living bridge between human hopes and the boundless blue. The horse's name holds the key, lung for wind, the invisible force that carries seeds and storms alike, and ta for vitality, the energy that animates all things. Together they create a symbol as old as the mountains themselves, yet as immediate as the next gust lifting a flag toward the heavens. Now, those prayer flags aren't mere decoration. Each color, blue for sky, white for air, red for fire, green for water, yellow for earth, represents the elements the wind horse balances as it runs. But here's where celestial wisdom gallops in. Tibetan astrologers don't just release flags randomly. They consult intricate charts called Lo Tha, mapping the lungta's annual path based on planetary alignments and the 12-year animal cycle. The direction the wind horse flies changes yearly. Some years it charges east with the vigor of a spring dawn, others it drifts southwest like autumn's last warmth. Time your flag hanging wrong, and your prayers might tumble earthward instead of soaring. What makes this myth extraordinary is how it merges the seen and unseen. The lungta isn't just a metaphor, it's mathematics. Ancient texts like the Kalachakra Tantra detail how to calculate the horse's flight using lunar mansions and Jupiter's cycle, a system startlingly close to modern orbital mechanics. Monasteries still preserve wooden blocks carved with star maps, their edges worn smooth by centuries of astrologers tracing paths for the wind horse to follow. And when solar winds ignite the auroras over the Himalayas, elders whisper that the lungta has broken free, its mane scattering cosmic light across the stratosphere. Archaeology offers tangible proof of this sky-bound devotion. Excavations along the Silk Road uncover bronze amulets shaped like horses with wings of flame, their bellies hollowed to hold scrolls of mantras, early parallels to prayer flags. Even more telling are the 1,000-year-old Dizang forts, their rooftops always angled to catch the lungta's current, their walls painted with the horse surrounded by the 8 auspicious symbols, each one a celestial landmark. But perhaps the most breathtaking detail lies in the flags themselves. Faded ones are never thrown away, they're burned, their smoke becoming the wind horse's breath, carrying prayers faster than sound. Modern physicists might call this atmospheric dispersal, but to a monk tying a new flag as the morning star rises, it's something far more profound, a pact with the sky, a trust that the wind will listen, and that somewhere beyond the peaks, a luminous horse still runs, turning human whispers into storms of blessing. The next time you see fabric fluttering against an open sky, pause. That's not just cloth and wind, it's the echo of an ancient race across the heavens, where every snap in the breeze is a hoofbeat, and every drifting thread, a mane trailing stardust. In the depths of winter, when the nights stretched their coldest fingers across the Roman Empire, a blaze of light defied the darkness, the dies natalis solis invicti, the birthday of the unconquered sun. This wasn't just a festival, it was a cosmic battle cry, celebrated on December 25th, the day the sun's decline finally reversed after the solstice. The god at its center, Sol Invictus, wasn't some minor deity. His golden radiance adorned coins, his face etched into the shields of legions, and his cult woven into the very fabric of imperial power. When Emperor Aurelian declared him the empire's chief god in 274, it was more than piety, it was political theater. The sun, after all, never loses. It always rises. What better symbol for an empire desperate to project invincibility amid crumbling borders and civil wars? But here's where the story ignites. Long before Aurelian, sun worship pulsed through Rome's veins. The Syrian sun god Elagabalus had tried and failed to impose his own solar cult a century earlier. Mithras, the Persian-inspired god of light, lured soldiers in underground temples with rituals of rebirth. Even Apollo, with his gleaming chariot, had solar ties. Aurelian's genius was synthesis. He didn't invent Sol Invictus, he rebranded him, merging Syrian, Persian, and Roman solar traditions into a single imperial religion. The new temples he built weren't just shrines, they were propaganda machines. The most lavish, in Rome itself, faced the winter solstice sunrise, its doors flung wide to catch the first light on December 25th, a spectacle designed to awe the masses. Now leap ahead a few decades to the rise of Christianity. Early church fathers like Clement of Alexandria debated Christ's birth date, some said April, others May. So why December 25th? The answer crackles with irony. By the 4th century, Christianity needed to compete with pagan festivals to convert the masses. What better way to eclipse Sol Invictus than to co-opt his birthday? The church didn't just steal the date, it reframed the symbolism. Christ became the Son of Righteousness, mentioned in Malachi, his birth heralding true light into the world. Even the timing of Christmas Mass at dawn mirrored the solar cult solstice vigils. Archaeology underscores this celestial sleight of hand. Beneath St. Peter's Basilica, mosaics show Christ as Helios, the sun god, riding a chariot across the heavens. 5th century sermons explicitly linked Christ's birth to the solstice's returning light. And those Roman solar feasts, many of their customs gift-giving, candle-lit processions, evergreen decorations slid seamlessly into Christmas traditions. The very word Yule traces back to Germanic solstice celebrations, further proof of how deeply these rituals rooted themselves across cultures. What makes this myth endure isn't just the historical switcheroo, it's the primal human need it reveals. Whether praying to Sol Invictus or singing Silent Night, we're all grasping for light in the darkest time of year. The next time you see a Christmas star atop a tree or a solstice bonfire's glow, remember, you're witnessing the echo of a 2,000-year-old battle for the sun's allegiance, one where even the gods had to share the sky. The waves crashed against the shores of ancient Hawaii with a rhythm as old as time, but for the goddess Hina, the ocean had become a prison. Trapped in a world of endless labor beating bark cloth until her hands bled, weaving until her vision blurred, she made a decision that would etch her name into the stars. She would escape, not by canoe or foot, but by climbing the very threads of the night itself. According to chanters of old, Hina called upon a spider, its silken strands glistening with moonlight, and climbed that delicate ladder all the way to the moon's pale face, where she remains to this day, her figure still visible in the lunar shadows. What's mesmerizing about this myth isn't just its poetry, it's the precision with which it mirrors real celestial navigation. Polynesian voyagers, like the spiders of legend, used invisible threads to traverse vast distances. The star compass, a mental map of the heavens, functioned much like Hina's silken ladder. By memorizing the rising and setting points of key stars, navigators could climb from one celestial marker to the next, just as Hina ascended her shimmering pathway. The moon itself was a critical guide, its phases dictated tidal currents, while its position relative to the horizon helped sailors calibrate latitude. Some scholars suggest Hina's spiderweb could symbolize these star paths, with each silken strand representing a route etched in the sky, but the myth deepens when you examine Hina's lunar transformation. Unlike Western moon figures like Artemis or Selene, who rule from a distance, Hina becomes part of the moon's geography. Hawaiian oral traditions describe dark patches on the lunar surface as her kapa bark cloth spread out to dry, while the man in the moon is reinterpreted as her silhouette, forever bending over her work. This isn't just storytelling, it's celestial cartography. The same mariners who navigated by the stars would have seen Hina's form as a reminder of their own voyages, her presence a beacon of resilience. Archaeology adds another layer. Petroglyphs found on Molokai depict stick figures climbing upward, some surrounded by radial lines resembling spider webs. These carvings often appear near ancient fishing sites, where lunar cycles dictated tide patterns crucial for harvests. Even today, Hawaiian fishermen time their expeditions by the moon's phases, calling it Hina's calendar. The myth, then, isn't just about escape, it's a survival manual encoded in the stars. Compare this to other lunar myths. In Maori tradition, the moon is Rona, dragged skyward after cursing it for hiding behind clouds. For the Inuit, it's the chaste sun sister. Hina's story stands apart because she doesn't flee in fear or anger, she claims the moon as sanctuary, turning it into a symbol of autonomy. When you gaze at the moon tonight, try seeing it as Hina did, not a cold rock but a tapestry of liberation, woven one silken thread at a time. High above the peaks of Mount Alborz, where the clouds themselves seem to bow in reverence, there once soared a creature with feathers of molten bronze and eyes that held the wisdom of 10,000 lifetimes, the Simurgh. This wasn't just a mythical bird, it was a cosmic librarian, its vast wings said to carry the knowledge of all ages, its nest built from the shattered remnants of ancient civilizations. In Zoroastrian tradition, the Simurgh's very existence was tied to the fate of the universe. When the world grows corrupt beyond redemption, this celestial guardian will rise from its perch, its wings stirring a purifying storm that cleanses the earth in fire and ash. Only then can the final resurrection begin, when the righteous dead awaken to a perfected world. But here's where the myth takes flight beyond mere apocalypse. The Simurgh's feathers aren't just golden, they're inscribed with secrets. Persian miniatures depict each plume as a shimmering tablet, etched with ciphers that could unlock the mysteries of creation. Some scholars argue these feather scripts mirror the tale of a comet, specifically Halley's Comet, which blazed across Iranian skies in 1066, coinciding with the era when Simurgh lore flourished. The comet's periodic returns might have inspired the bird's cyclical role in Zoroastrian eschatology, its appearance heralding both destruction and renewal. Dive deeper, and the Simurgh symbolism becomes even more layered. In the epic Shahnameh, the bird raises the hero Zal, teaching him the language of the stars and the healing properties of plants, knowledge later used to save kingdoms. This mirrors the dual nature of comets in ancient astronomy, harbingers of doom yet also bringers of wisdom, their trajectories meticulously recorded by Persian astrologers as divine messages. Even the Simurgh's name whispers celestial ties. Some linguists trace it to the Avestan, Murg Sina, meaning bird of the eagle constellation, possibly linking it to Aquila, the eagle-shaped star group visible in summer skies. What's haunting is how the myth persists in unexpected ways. Modern Iranians still speak of the Simurgh during Nowruz, the New Year, when families leap over bonfires, a ritual echoing the bird's purifying flames. And when the Rosetta spacecraft landed on a comet in 2014, Persian poets revived the old analogy: the Simurgh has alighted, and we are reading its feathers at last. Perhaps the Simurgh's greatest lesson isn't about endings, but patience. Like a comet orbiting silently through the centuries, it reminds us that wisdom isn't seized, it's awaited, its revelation timed to the turning of cosmic wheels far beyond our reckoning. The next time you see a streak of light in the night sky, remember, it might not just be a comet, it could be the Simurgh brushing the edge of our atmosphere, waiting for the moment to unfold its wings and speak. Beneath the still waters of Avalon, where mist curls like the breath of forgotten gods, waits a figure as enigmatic as the stars reflected on her surface, the Lady of the Lake. To Arthurian legend, she was both nurturer and warrior, her pale hands offering Excalibur's gleaming hilt from the depths before reclaiming it when the king's destiny was fulfilled. But her power wasn't confined to swords and sorcery. Medieval texts describe her dwelling in a realm where time flowed differently, her palace shimmering like a mirage under the water, a detail that mirrors ancient observations of light refracting through lake ice, distorting the auroras that occasionally flickered beneath the surface. Could she have been born from early Britain's awe at the northern lights, their rippling colors interpreted as a woman's robe trailing through celestial waters? Now soar north to the blood-stained skies of Norse sagas, where the Valkyries rode not on water, but on beams of otherworldly light. These, choosers of the slain, were far more than Odin's battlefield harvesters. Their armor gleamed with a radiant scalds called Alphablot, a glow akin to the aurora's dance, and their steeds left hoofprints of shimmering airfire in the night. When they carried fallen warriors to Valhalla, their flight paths traced the same erratic arcs as the northern lights phenomena Norse astronomers meticulously recorded in runic almanacs. The Poetic Edda even describes Valkyries weaving fate on a loom strung with human tendons, their shuttles darting like the aurora's sudden green flares. The contrast between these celestial women is striking. The lady moves with liquid silence, her gifts tied to singular heroes and sacred contracts. The Valkyries are a thunderous collective, their loyalty pledged to the cosmic balance of Ragnarök. Yet both share uncanny ties to atmospheric magic. Medieval chronicles from Wales speak of the lady appearing during water auroras, rare events where light reflections make lakes appear to burn with inner fire precisely when Arthur's legends claim Excalibur first surfaced. Meanwhile, Viking grave artifacts include polished iron discs etched with star maps, some bearing Valkyrie figures superimposed over oral patterns, suggesting a deliberate link between the maidens and magnetic storms. Archaeology deepens the mystery. At Glastonbury Tor, where Arthurian lore claims the Lady's Lake once lay, core samples reveal iron-rich sediment layers that could produce eerie underwater luminescence during solar storms. In Scandinavia, excavated cirrus staffs topped with aurora borealis-shaped metalwork hint at rituals summoning Valkyrie-like visions. Both cultures, it seems, transformed atmospheric phenomena into divine feminine intermediaries, one a solitary guardian of thresholds, the other a chorus of cosmic arbiters. What unites them is their weapon-bestowing role. Excalibur's blade, forged in otherworldly flame, finds its mirror in the Valkyrie's spears, said to be tipped with star iron from meteorites. But where the lady's sword demands return a cycle of giving and revocation, the Valkyrie's gifts are final, their weapons bestowed only in death's irreversible embrace. Perhaps this reflects their origins in different celestial phenomena, the lady born from water's reflective, ever-changing surface, the Valkyries from the aurora's fleeting but violent brilliance. The next time you see the northern lights ripple across the sky, squint a little. Are those the Valkyries' cloaks billowing as they ride to claim new heroes? Or is it the lady's mirror, tilted just enough to catch a glimpse of a world where legends still swim beneath the stars? To the Inca, the night sky wasn't just a canvas of stars, it was a ladder. Not just any ladder, but the Chicana, the Andean cross, its three-tiered steps carved from the very beams of the Milky Way. This sacred symbol, etched into temple walls and woven into textiles, held secrets far beyond its simple geometric form. At first glance it resembles a stepped cross, its 12 points marking the cardinal directions, but follow its paths upward and you'll find a bridge between worlds, the lower realm of the serpent, the middle world of the puma, and the upper world of the condor, each tier mirroring the Inca's cosmic vision of existence. And anchoring it all, the Southern Cross, the celestial compass that guided everything from planting seasons to the afterlife. The genius of the Chicana lies in its duality. By day it functioned as a solar calendar, the shadows cast by stone pillars at Machu Picchu's Intihuatana aligned with the cross's arms during solstices, signaling when to plant quinoa or harvest potatoes. But by night it transformed into a shaman's map. The dark patches of the Milky Way, which the Inca called Mayu, the celestial river, were seen as portals where souls ascended or descended along the Chicana's axis. Spanish chroniclers recorded healers using the symbol in rituals, tracing its steps with coca leaves to climb into the spirit realm, a practice echoing modern neuroscience findings about how rhythmic, geometric visuals can induce trance states. Now consider the Southern Cross's role. Unlike the North Star, this constellation's orientation shifts dramatically throughout the year. The Inca didn't just observe these changes, they encoded them. Temple windows at Coricancha framed the cross's position during the June solstice, when it stood perfectly upright, its base touching the horizon like a ladder rooted in the earth. This alignment wasn't poetic coincidence. It marked the start of the dry season, when roads were built and mountainside terraces reinforced. Even the Chicana's hollow center held meaning, a reminder that true wisdom comes from balancing all three worlds, not fixating on one. What's astonishing is how this myth survives in living tradition. Quechua elders still teach that the Chicana's lower steps represent the underworld's wisdom lessons from ancestors and the land itself. The middle tier symbolizes the tangible present, community, labor, and the art of weaving both literal and social fabrics. The upper world, that's the realm of potential, where the condor's flight mirrors the mind's boundless creativity. Modern astronomers note something haunting. The Chicana's proportions match the Fibonacci sequence, a mathematical pattern found in galaxies and nautilus shells alike. So the next time you glimpse the Southern Cross, don't just see four bright stars, see the rungs of an ancient ladder, one that still connects the soil beneath your feet to the cosmos above, a testament to a civilization that didn't just watch the sky, but climbed it. When the evening star Inanna pinned her lapis lazuli necklace to the heavens and turned her gaze toward the underworld, even the gods held their breath. This wasn't just a myth, it was a celestial manifesto etched into clay tablets over 4,000 years ago, detailing the Sumerian goddess's harrowing descent through 7 gates, each one stripping away her divine regalia until she stood naked before her sister Ereshkigal, queen of the dead. But here's the revelation hidden in plain sight. Inanna's journey mirrors Venus's astronomical disappearance. For roughly 8 days every 19 months, Venus vanishes from the night sky, sinking below the horizon, a phenomenon the Sumerians interpreted as their goddess trapped in the underworld, her light extinguished. The myth's precision is chilling. Just as Inanna resurfaces after 3 days and nights in the abyss, Venus reemerges as the morning star, reborn in the east like a jewel pried from death's grip. The genius of this story lies in its layers. Each item Inanna surrenders: her crown, her beads, her measuring rod symbolizes a celestial attribute, The crown represents Venus's brilliance, the beads its perceived movement across constellations, and the rod its precise orbital measurements tracked by Sumerian astronomers. By the time she reaches Ereshkigal's throne, stripped bare, she embodies the dead Venus invisible to human eyes, but the resurrection isn't just astronomical poetry. The myth encodes agricultural cycles tied to Venus's reappearance. Cuneiform tablets from her mentioned ceremonies celebrating Inanna's return coinciding with barley harvests, suggesting her descent was a metaphor for seeds buried in darkness before sprouting anew. Now consider the ritual reenactments. During the Akitu festival, priestesses performed Inanna's descent by processing through 7 temple gates, removing ornaments at each, a practice mirroring Venus's 7-step disappearance phase. Even the number 7 is celestial. Babylonian star catalogues divided the sky into 7 sectors, each guarded by a deity, but the darkest twist comes from the myth's ending. Inanna can only leave the underworld by offering a substitute, her husband Dumuzi, whose subsequent cyclical death and rebirth mirrors Venus's alternating appearances as evening and morning star. Archaeologists have found cylinder seals depicting Dumuzi as a shepherd with a goat's legs, a nod to Capricorn, the constellation Venus often occupies during its transitions. What makes this myth endure isn't just its astronomical accuracy, it's its raw humanity. Inanna doesn't descend as a conqueror, but as a vulnerable being facing annihilation. Her resurrection isn't triumphant, it's bittersweet, demanding sacrifice. Modern skywatchers might see Venus's disappearance as mere orbital mechanics, but the Sumerians saw a goddess who dared to stare into the abyss, proving even the brightest lights must flirt with darkness to be reborn. In the beginning, before the first breath of wind stirred the oceans or the first ray of light pierced the darkness, there existed only 2 beings, Ranganui, the Sky Father, and Papatuanuku, the Earth Mother. Locked in a tight embrace, they left no space for their 70 children, who grew in the cramped darkness between them. These weren't ordinary offspring, they were the gods of forests, winds, and oceans, each straining against their parents' suffocating love. Among them, Tain Mahuta, god of forests, made a decision that would shatter the cosmos. He would force his parents apart, creating the world as we know it. What makes this myth so powerful isn't just its drama, it's how closely it mirrors the violent geology of New Zealand itself. When Tain pressed his shoulders against Ranganui's chest and his feet against Papatuanuku's back, his struggle wasn't some abstract metaphor. The groaning and splitting described in oral traditions echo the sounds of tectonic plates grinding beneath the islands, where the Pacific and Indo-Australian plates collide. As Tain pushed with all his might, the earth shuddered and cracked, a poetic parallel to the fault lines that scar New Zealand's landscape, where geothermal vents still spew steam like the size of Papatuanuku mourning her lost embrace. Now consider the volcanic fury that followed the separation. When Ranganui wept for his beloved, his tears became rain, but Papatuanuku's grief took a fiercer form. In some versions, her fiery sighs birthed the volcanoes of the North Island, their eruptions a manifestation of her longing. This isn't just mythic imagination, it's geological reality. The topovolcanic zone, home to some of Earth's most violent supervolcanoes, lies directly along the boundary where these forces clash. The legendary eruption of Topo around 230 C, which turned skies red as far as Rome and China, might even have influenced later iterations of the story, with the ash cloud symbolizing Ranganui's torn cloak. But here's where the myth deepens. The children who forced the separation weren't celebrated as heroes, they bore the guilt of their act forever. Tahirimatia, god of storms, was so enraged by his siblings' betrayal that he tore out his own eyes and hurled them into the sky, where they became the stars. Even today, Maori astronomers read those stars as warnings. The Pleiades Matariki signal the new year, but also remind descendants of the family's fractured unity. The geological tension isn't just beneath their feet, it's written in the heavens. What's astonishing is how this narrative persists in modern conservation. Maori environmentalists speak of rahui, temporary bans on harvesting, as a way to let Papua New Guinea heal, just as she needed time to recover after being torn from Ranganui. The Wekari/White Island eruption in 2019 was framed not just as a natural disaster, but as another reminder of the Earth Mother's unresolved grief. The myth isn't locked in the past, it's a living lens for understanding a land where the ground itself feels alive, so the next time you stand on New Zealand's soil, remember, you're walking on a love story. Every thermal pool, every earthquake tremor, every sunrise stretching across the sky is part of an ancient embrace, one that was never truly broken, just transformed into the very fabric of the world. From the fiery heart of Armenian legend erupts a deity unlike any other Vahan, the dragon slayer, whose very birth blurs the line between myth and cosmic upheaval. Ancient texts describe his arrival not in a palace or temple, but among the reeds of the Euphrates, where the heavens themselves convulsed as he tore his way into existence. The sky burned crimson, the seas churned backward, and the earth shook so violently that stars tumbled loose from their celestial moorings. This wasn't just a divine birth, it was a cosmic recalibration, the moment a storm god stepped onto the stage of history with the roar of thunder in his lungs and the glint of stolen fire in his eyes. That fire holds the key to Vahan's mythos. Unlike Prometheus, who gifted flame to humanity out of compassion, Vahan seized it from the cosmic forge of the god Aramazed, not for mortals, but for himself. Armenian poets sang of his theft as a celestial heist, his chariot drawn by lightning-maned steeds, his hands gripping embers so fierce they scorched the constellations. The fragments he dropped during his escape became the Milky Way, a glittering trail of divine contraband still visible in the night sky. Here's where the myth twists into something deeper. Vahan's fire wasn't just physical. It symbolized Kayagak, the sacred energy of creation, the spark that animates both storms and souls. Zoroastrian texts from neighboring Persia hint at a parallel in their fire temples, where Atar, the divine flame, was said to carry the same life force. Yet Vahan's greatest feat wasn't theft, it was slaughter. The dragons he vanquished weren't mere beasts, they were manifestations of chaos itself. His most famous foe, Vishap, coiled around Mount Ararat like a suffocating serpent, its breath poisoning the clouds until rains turned to acid. The battle lasted 40 days, each clash echoing the seasonal storms that ravaged the Armenian highlands. When Vahan finally drove his bronze spear through Vishap's heart, the creature's death throes carved out Lake Van, its blood seeping into the earth to become the region's mineral-rich springs. Modern geologists note the lake's volcanic origins, its waters still tinged with iron oxides, a haunting echo of the dragon's spilled lifeblood. What cements Vahan's legacy is how neatly he slots into the Indo-European hero archetype, the storm god who battles serpentine chaos, like Indra slaying Vritra or Thor hammering Jörmungandr. But there's a crucial difference. While other heroes wield hammers or lightning bolts, Vahan's weapon is his voice. Ancient hymns describe his war cries as sonic upheavals, shattering mountains and herding storms like sheep. Linguists trace his name to the Proto-Indo-European weg, meaning to break or to shout, a root that birthed words like vocable and invoke. This wasn't just brute force, it was the primal power of sound shaping reality, a concept later echoed in Armenian Christian mysticism, where the divine word could move worlds. The most tantalizing clue to Vahan's origins lies in an unlikely place, the night sky. Pre-Christian Armenians venerated Orion as Vahan's constellation, his belt sword representing the spear that felled Vishap. But there's a twist. Orion's position near the winter solstice aligns with ancient festivals celebrating Vahan's rebirth, when priests lit bonfires to mimic his stolen flames. Astroarchaeologists have found standing stones near Metzemer that frame Orion's rising during these festivals, their carvings depicting a god straddling a dragon's corpse. Perhaps that's why Vahan endures not as a relic, but as a living force. Even today, Armenian farmers whisper his name when storms approach, not in fear, but in recognition. Every crack of thunder, every streak of lightning, every reed bending in the wind carries a trace of his legend, a reminder that chaos and creation are two sides of the same celestial coin, and that some fires, once stolen, never truly go out. High above the Korean peninsula, where the sky meets the peaks of the Baekdu Mountains, there rides a warrior whose chariot burns with the fire of 1,000 dawns, Himasu, the sun god of ancient Korea. Unlike the solitary sun deities of other cultures, Himasu doesn't drift lazily across the heavens. He charges, clad in golden armor and wielding a flaming sword. His chariot is drawn by 8 mighty horses, their hooves striking sparks that become the morning dew. Every sunrise is a victory, every sunset a tactical retreat before the next day's battle. But here's where the myth takes a thrilling turn. Himasu's journey isn't just a celestial commute. It's a military campaign. Korean texts like the Samguk Yusa describe how he descends at dusk to the land of darkness, where he wages eternal war against the forces of night, ensuring they never overwhelm the world. His chariot transforms into a fortress, its wheels locking into a defensive formation until the first light of victory cracks the horizon. Now sail 3,000 miles west to the Nile, where the sun god Ra's voyage couldn't be more different. His vessel, the solar bark, glides silently through the heavens, a sleek, golden ship manned by a crew of lesser gods who tend to its celestial rigging. By day, Ra sails across the Arch of Nut, the sky goddess. By night, he enters the Juat, the Egyptian underworld, but this isn't a retreat, it's a transformation. The bark becomes a serpentine craft, its hull glowing with protective spells as it navigates 12 perilous gates, each guarded by demons Ra must outwit or overpower. The Book of the Dead describes how the sun god merges with Osiris at midnight, their union symbolizing death and rebirth as the bark emerges victorious at dawn. The contrast between these two myths is striking. Himasu's sun is a warrior's fire, relentless and combative, reflecting Korea's history of defending its borders against invasions. His chariot's 8 horses mirror the 8 provinces of ancient Korea, suggesting the sun's journey was also a metaphor for national unity. Meanwhile, Ra's bark embodies the Nile's cyclical rhythms, its orderly passage mirroring the river's predictable floods, its nightly dangers echoing the crocodiles and whirlpools lurking beneath its surface. Both myths explain the sun's movement, but one frames it as a campaign, the other as a ritual, yet beneath these differences lies a shared genius, the recognition that the sun doesn't just rise, it returns. Himasu's battles and Ra's regenerations both acknowledge the precariousness of light's victory over darkness. Korean shamans still perform rituals at sacred peaks, chanting to strengthen Himasu for his nightly battles. Egyptian temple reliefs show priests burning midnight oils to aid Ra's bark through the Juat. These weren't just stories, they were cosmic partnerships between gods and mortals, a reminder that every sunrise required effort, faith, and collective will. So the next time you watch dawn break, ask yourself, are you seeing a chariot's charge or a bark's silent glide? The answer might just depend on which ancestors you're listening to. In the sun-scorched mesas of the American Southwest, where the sky stretches taut as a drumhead, the Hopi people whisper of beings who dance between the stars and the earth, the Kachinas. These aren't just spirits, they're cosmic intermediaries, their intricately carved masks reflecting not just animal or ancestral forms, but constellations themselves. When a Kachina dancer dons the face of the Longhorn Star mask, they aren't merely wearing a symbol, they're embodying the Pleiades, that celestial cluster the Hopi call Chuhu, the seed stars, whose rising heralds the planting season. Every feather, every paint stroke on these masks corresponds to a celestial map, a living almanac woven into ritual, the Kachina's most sacred duty, bringing rain. In a land where drought can erase civilizations, their dances aren't performances, they're acts of celestial engineering. The rhythmic stomping of feet mimics thunder, the swishing of gourd rattles becomes the hiss of falling rain, and the towering headdresses sway like storm clouds gathering over the desert. But here's what most miss: the timing of these ceremonies isn't arbitrary. They're synchronized with Venus's cycles, the planet's appearance as morning or evening star dictating when certain Kachinas emerge. The Hopi observe that Venus's 8-year dance across the sky mirrors their own agricultural cycles, a harmony they encoded into rituals like the Pawamu, the bean dance, where sprouted beans symbolize both crops, and the sprouting of Venus after its disappearance. Yet the Kachina's most haunting role is as prophets of drought. Oral traditions speak of the Angakchina, the long-haired Kachinas, whose flowing locks represent rain, but when their masks are stored away too soon, or their dances falter, elders read it as an omen of parched earth to come. Modern climatologists have found eerie correlations between these rituals and actual drought patterns. Tree ring data from Arizona's ponderosa pines shows severe droughts around the 1400s, coinciding with a period when Kachina iconography surged in Hopi art, as if the people were pleading with the cosmos through every carved figure. What's astonishing is how these celestial messages persist. At Walpi, one of the oldest continuously inhabited villages in North America, elders still interpret the Kachina's movements by watching the stars. When Orion's belt tilts a certain way in winter, they know it's time for the Soya Luna ceremony, where Kachinas arrive not just to summon rain, but to realign the world's balance. Archaeologists have found prehistoric petroglyphs near Hopi lands showing Kachina-like figures beside star maps, suggesting this fusion of astronomy and spirituality stretches back millennia. The next time you see the Pleiades glittering in the night sky, imagine them not as distant suns, but as Kachinas descending, their masks aglow, their dances weaving moisture into the thirsty earth, a celestial contract written in light and whispered through generations. In the amber-lit forests of the Baltic, where the winter sun barely grazes the treetops, the goddess Sol weeps golden tears, each one hardening into amber as they touch the earth. Lithuanian legends tell how her daughter, the dawn maiden Aushrin, vanished one autumn, stolen by the underworld god Velnias as she danced too close to the horizon's edge. What follows isn't just a mother's grief, it's a celestial mystery woven into the very fabric of the seasons. While Greek Persephone's abduction explains winter's origin, Sol's quest reveals something far more tangible: the glittering trail of Baltic amber, fossilized sunlight that guided ancient traders along the very routes where this myth took root. Every detail in the story pulses with seasonal symbolism. Sol's chariot, usually drawn by fiery horses, stalls in midair as she searches, causing the days to shorten. Her tears' amber droplets wash ashore each winter, when storms churn the seabed and scatter the golden stones along the coast. But here's where archaeology chimes in. Bronze Age burial sites along the Baltic contain amber beads carved with solar motifs, often placed in women's graves near spindle whorls, an echo of Sol spinning light into dawn each morning. The myth wasn't just poetry, it was a trade network's origin story. The Amber Road, stretching from the Baltic to the Mediterranean, carried these solar tears to Egyptian pharaohs and Mycenaean kings, who prized them as fragments of the sun goddess's sorrow. The abduction's timing is equally precise. Oral traditions place Aushrin's disappearance around the autumn equinox, when Baltic nights overtake the days. Rituals performed on Krive, the sacred oak groves, involved hanging amber strands from branches to catch the lost dawn's light, a practice mirrored in modern Janine's festival decorations. Even Velnias, the abductor, isn't purely evil. His realm represents the fertile darkness where seeds germinate, suggesting Aushrin's captivity is as necessary as Persephone's. But unlike the Greek myth, Sol's rescue mission never fully succeeds. Her daughter returns each spring, but the cycle repeats. immortalized in the flicker of candlelight through amber, sun and dawn, forever chasing, never uniting. What makes this myth unforgettable is how it transforms natural phenomena into emotional truths. The amber that sparked Baltic commerce becomes a mother's grief made solid. The winter solstice isn't just an astronomical event, it's the moment Saul's chariot wheels finally gain traction as hope glimmers on the horizon. Next time you hold a piece of amber to the light, look closely. Those trapped bubbles might not be air, but the last whispers of a goddess calling her daughter home. One day in the fields near Tarquinia, as an Etruscan farmer drove his plow through the fresh-turned earth, the blade struck something impossible, not a rock or root, but a laughing child with the face of an old man. This was Tages, the divine prophet who erupted from the soil-trailing tendrils of cosmic wisdom, his voice crackling with knowledge no mortal should possess. According to Etruscan lore, he didn't crawl or stumble from the furrow, he rose fully articulate, chanting verses that would become the foundation of their entire spiritual tradition. Within moments a crowd gathered, farmers, priests, even the king, all kneeling as this earth-born seer dictated the sacred rules of haruspicy, the art of reading divine will in the livers of sacrificed animals. But here's what most historians miss: Tages didn't just teach rituals, his teachings tied every earthly omen to the celestial dance above, binding entrails to eclipses and thunderbolts to comet paths in a grand cosmic codex. What makes Tages' origin story so unsettling is its agricultural roots. He didn't descend from the heavens or emerge from a cave, he was literally plowed up, a child of the fertile soil yet brimming with star-born knowledge. The Etruscans saw this as proof of their land's sacredness. If divine prophets could sprout like wheat, then every clod of dirt held potential revelation. Archaeologists have uncovered bronze plowshares buried in temple foundations, suggesting farmers' tools became ritual objects after Tages' appearance. Even the timing of his emergence hints at celestial alignment: spring planting season, when the constellation Orion, which Etruscans associated with their god Tinia, dominated the night sky, his belt stars resembling the three sacred divisions Tages drew in the soil to explain the universe's structure. Tages' greatest legacy was his fusion of earth and sky. A haruspics inspecting a lamb's liver didn't just see an organ, they saw a microcosm. The liver's lobes corresponded to the four quarters of the heavens, its veins mapping planetary movements. If a comet streaked across the sky while a sacrifice burned, its path was read in tandem with the liver's blemishes, creating a layered prophecy. One Etruscan bronze mirror shows Tages pointing to a liver in one hand and a comet in the other, his feet rooted in furrows that spiral outward like galaxy arms. The message was clear: to understand the gods, you had to read soil and stars as one text. But here's the twist that chills modern astronomers. Among Tages' lost prophecies, fragments preserved by Roman scholars mention the fiery-haired star that returns to judge kings. In 2012, researchers analyzing sediment layers near Volterra found evidence of an ancient comet impact coinciding with the decline of Etruscan power. Could Tages' teachings have encoded ancestral memories of an earlier catastrophe? Or did the Etruscans, through meticulous sky-watching, predict the very celestial event that would herald their downfall? The answer may lie in their most haunting artifact, the Piacenza liver, a bronze model of a sheep's liver etched with 40 celestial markers, its surface pocked with grooves that align with known comet trajectories. Tages' final lesson was his disappearance. After delivering his teachings, he crumbled into the earth as suddenly as he'd emerged, leaving behind only whispers and the indelible sense that wisdom wasn't created, it was harvested, waiting in the soil for the right blade to set it free. The next time you walk a plowed field at dusk, watch where you step. The boundary between dirt and divinity might be thinner than you think. On the windswept steppes of Mongolia, where the horizon stretches uninterrupted in every direction, the sky isn't just above, it is everything. To the nomadic tribes who rode beneath its vast canopy, the eternal blue sky, or Kirk Mernk Tengri, wasn't a distant realm but a living, breathing sovereign. This was the domain of Tengri, the supreme sky god whose will shaped empires and whose breath filled the lungs of every warrior from Genghis Khan to the lowliest herder. Unlike the compartmentalized deities of other pantheons, Tengri wasn't merely a god of storms or sun, he was the celestial totality, his blue expanse symbolizing both infinite justice and the unforgiving reality of life on the steppe. When a Mongol raised their eyes upward, they didn't see empty space, they saw the face of destiny itself, watching, judging, electing. This divine mandate manifested most powerfully in the rise of Genghis Khan. The secret history of the Mongols recounts how young Temujin, bloodied and near defeat, climbed Burkhan Khaldun mountain to pray, and there, beneath a sky suddenly clear of clouds, received his sacred calling. The eternal blue sky had chosen him, not through whispers or visions but through unmistakable celestial signs, a lone falcon circling overhead at dawn, a meteor shower on the eve of battle, the way storms parted as his armies advanced. His title, Genghis Khan, wasn't just political, it was cosmological. To oppose him wasn't mere treason, it was defiance of the sky's will. Mongol battle standards, topped with horsehair tails, weren't flags but conduits, their swaying mimicking the eternal wind of Tengri's breath carrying divine favor. Yet Tengri's sovereignty extended beyond conquest into the most intimate of Mongol rituals, sky burial. When a warrior died, their body wasn't buried or burned but laid bare on the open steppe, offered back to the heavens through the beaks of vultures. This wasn't disposal but transfiguration, the soul ascending with the scavengers, the bones whitening like clouds, the entire process a sacred dialogue between earth and sky. Tibetan Buddhists practiced similar rites, but the Mongol version held a crucial distinction. The deceased wasn't merely returning to nature, but being actively claimed by Tengri. Jesuit missionaries in the 13th century recorded warriors speaking of the vultures as Tengri's messengers, their wings beating in time with the wind that would carry the soul skyward. Modern satellite imagery reveals something haunting. Many ancient sky burial sites align with magnetic anomalies, places where the Earth's energy might have been perceived as thinning the veil between realms. What makes this myth so enduring is how it collapses the distance between ruler and cosmos. The blue sky wasn't a metaphor for Genghis Khan's power, it was the source. His famed nine-tailed banner didn't symbolize authority, it channeled it, the horsehair strands believed to trap Tengri's blessings like a net catching stars. Even the Mongols' revolutionary postal system, the yam, took its name from the word for path, implicitly framing messengers as traveling not just between outposts, but along celestial routes. Perhaps the most poignant evidence lies in the ruins of Karakoram. Unlike other imperial capitals obsessed with pyramids or ziggurats, the Mongols built no temples to Tengri because the sky itself was his sanctuary. The city's lone surviving monument isn't a statue but a stone turtle facing upward, its shell etched with stars, forever waiting for the heavens to speak again. In a world where we've learned to ignore the sky, the Mongol vision challenges us to look up not just with our eyes, but with the bone-deep understanding that every sunset is a decree, every storm a verdict, and every clear blue morning a reminder of sovereignty vast enough to humble even the mightiest conqueror. Rising from the dust of ancient Babylon like a beacon of celestial authority, the Ishtar Gate wasn't just an entrance, it was a cosmological manifesto in glazed blue tile. Every inch of its towering facade pulsed with divine symbolism, golden lions representing Ishtar's martial might, bulls symbolizing Adad's stormy dominion, and serpent dragons embodying Marduk's cosmic order. But the real masterpiece lay overhead. The gate's processional way was designed as a terrestrial zodiac, its path aligning with the New Year's Akitu festival, when the statues of gods paraded beneath constellations mirroring their earthly counterparts. This wasn't mere decoration, It was a meticulously engineered microcosm where the celestial hierarchy dictated the social order. Priests timed rituals to Venus's cycles as Ishtar's planet, while kings validated their rule by receiving sovereignty from the starry scepter of Marduk's constellation Draco. The entire structure functioned as a tuning fork between heaven and earth. When the gods moved in the sky, their earthly avatars echoed below in lockstep. Now leap across continents to the imperial courts of Han Dynasty China, where cosmic order wasn't a parade but a paperwork avalanche. Here, the heavens operated like the ultimate civil service, a sprawling bureaucracy where stars held official ranks, filed celestial reports, and even received promotions or demotions based on their performance. The North Star wasn't just a navigational anchor, it was the celestial emperor's throne, flanked by constellations functioning as ministries. The Eastern Palace handled spring rains, the Western Arsenal managed weapons, meteors were logged as misplaced inventory, and Ursa Major's 7 stars served as the imperial chariot, its rotation signaling bureaucratic reshuffles. Emperors employed teams of astrologer bureaucrats to decode this stellar paperwork, interpreting sunspots as sensorial rebukes or comet tails as memorials from deceased officials. One Tang Dynasty meteor shower was recorded as a mass petition from neglected ghosts, requiring immediate imperial pardons. The contrast between these systems couldn't be starker. Babylon's cosmos thrived on pageantry, gods and stars as celestial royalty holding court, their movement celebrated with feasts and fireworks. China's heavens resembled a divine dimvi, where even the Milky Way was seen as a logistical highway for star couriers delivering administrative decrees. Yet both shared an uncanny precision. Babylonian astronomical diaries logged lunar eclipses down to the minute for omens, while Chinese records of guest stars, supernova note exact dates and bureaucratic reactions. A clay tablet from Uruk might lament Mars loitering in Scorpio as a portent of war, while a Chinese court edict would reprimand the same planetary position as a lazy official neglecting paperwork. What's haunting is how these systems mirror their earthly power structures. The Ishtar Gates zodiac procession mirrored Babylon's absolute monarchy constellations as divine nobility demanding tribute. China's star bureaucracy reflected its meritocratic ideals, where even the heavens promoted based on merit or demoted, like the unfortunate star, Huagai, stripped of rank after failing to predict a drought. Modern telescopes reveal an irony. Babylon's fixed zodiac has shifted due to axial precession, while China's bureaucratic stars still shine, a testament to systems built on adaptation versus those built on ceremony. Next time you check your horoscope or curse government red tape, remember you're channeling traditions that once mapped the cosmos as either a divine parade or the ultimate office, proving that how we organize the stars says everything about how we organize ourselves. The skies above ancient Ireland didn't just bring rain, they brought gods. According to the Liebhar Gabhala, the Book of Invasions, the Tuatha De Danann arrived in a fleet of ships that blotted out the sun for 3 days, not by sailing over water, but by descending through the clouds themselves. These weren't mere mortals, they wielded weapons forged from otherworldly metals, carried a stone that roared when touched by a true king, and possessed the Lia Fail, a coronation stone that some legends claim was a meteorite still warm from its cosmic journey. The text described their arrival with eerie specificity. They came from 4 mythic cities, Phalias, Gorias, Phineas, and Murias, each associated with a treasure and a cardinal direction, suggesting a celestial origin rather than a terrestrial one. What makes their story so compelling isn't just the spectacle, it's the aftermath. After their defeat by the Milesians, the Tuatha De Danann didn't vanish. Instead, they retreated underground, becoming the Aos-Shi, the fairy folk of later folklore. This transformation from gods to subterranean spirits might seem like poetic downgrading, but archaeology hints at something startling. Bronze Age Irish burial mounds like Newgrange, aligned to solstice sunrises, contain artifacts with high nickel content, a telltale signature of meteoric iron. Could the Tuatha De Danaan's cloud ships have been misinterpreted comet fragments, their association with sudden brightness described as unendurable light upon arrival, and their subsequent retreat into the earth mirrors the trajectory of a meteorite impact, where celestial fire vanishes into the soil, leaving only legends and trace elements behind? Now consider their treasures. The sword of Nuada, which no enemy could escape, recalls the precision of comet fragments hitting with uncanny force. The cauldron of the Dagda, endlessly replenishing, might symbolize the fertility boost often observed after meteor impacts and rich soil with rare minerals. Even their retreat underground parallels a recurring motif in impact craters, where subterranean water reservoirs form in the aftermath, creating new ecosystems, or in mythic terms, new realms. The most tantalizing clue lies in their timing. Irish annals place the Tuatha De Danaan's arrival around 1800 BC, coinciding with the Bronze Age climate downturn linked to comet debris and ice core samples. Oral traditions speak of burning skies and stones from heaven during this era, while genetic studies show a sudden population shift in Ireland around the same period. Were the Tuatha De Danann comet-born strangers, their technology so advanced it seemed supernatural, or did their myth crystallize around real celestial trauma, transformed over millennia into a story of divine beings walking among mortals? Perhaps the answer lingers in liminal spaces, not quite history, not quite myth. The next time you see a shooting star streak over an Irish hillside, remember, it might not just be a piece of space rock. It could be the last echo of the Tuatha De Danann, still falling, still fading, still whispering their secrets to those who know how to listen. At the dawning of time, when the world was nothing but a vast, empty plain stretching beneath an untouchable sky, the Zulu tell of Unkilunkulu, the Great One, emerging not from dust or divine breath, but from the humble reeds of Ulanga. This wasn't a sudden apparition, it was a slow unfurling, like the first green shoots breaking through the earth after rain. Unlike other creator figures who descend from the heavens or erupt from chaos, Unkilunkulu's origin carries a quiet, organic majesty. He simply was, stepping into existence already ancient, his body threaded with the wisdom of the cosmos, and his first act, to break off pieces of those very reeds, fashioning them into the first humans, not as subjects or slaves, but as kin, bound to him by the same fibrous strands that once cradled his own awakening. What's striking about this myth isn't just its earthy simplicity, it's how Unkilunkulu's teachings mirror celestial patterns. As he walked the newborn world, he named the animals, whispered the secrets of fire, and most crucially, traced the arc of the Milky Way across the night sky, calling it Umkhonto Wezulu, the spear of heaven. To the Zulu, this luminous band wasn't just a cluster of stars, it was a bridge, a shimmering pathway where ancestral spirits, the Amadlozi, traveled between realms. Traditional healers, or sangomas, still consult its position during rituals, interpreting its glow as a celestial nod of approval or warning. The Milky Way's seasonal tilt, brightening in winter, aligns with the Zulu belief that spirits grow more active when the air turns crisp, their presence as palpable as the chill. Now consider the reeds. In Zulu cosmology, Ulanga isn't just a swamp, it's the primordial womb, a liminal space where life and afterlife intertwine. The same reeds that birthed Unkilunkulu are used today to weave Izimbali, spirit mats placed in sacred enclosures to invite ancestor communication. Ethnobotanists have found these reeds contain silica deposits that shimmer faintly under moonlight, a detail that might explain their sacred status. But the connection runs deeper. When Unkilunkulu split the reeds to create humanity, he didn't just gift life, he encoded a lesson. Just as reeds bend but don't break in the wind, so too must people endure, their roots anchored in communal bonds and celestial guidance. The most haunting echo of this myth lies in modern star lore. Zulu oral traditions describe Unkilunkulu's eventual departure, not in death, but in ascent. Some say he merged with the Southern Cross, his outstretched arms forming the constellation's 4 brightest stars. Others claim he walks the Milky Way's spine, herding ancestral spirits like a celestial shepherd. Either way, his presence lingers in the night sky's most practical lessons. Before colonial borders, Zulu navigators used the Milky Way's curve to time migrations, its position indicating when to plant sorghum or drive cattle to higher pastures. Even today, elders teach children to spot Eye and Kanyezi Venus as Unkilunkulu's eye, watching to ensure traditions endure. Perhaps the most profound truth lies in the myth's refusal to separate creation from continuity. Unkilunkulu didn't just make the world, he wove humanity into its very fabric, tying earthly existence to celestial cycles. The next time you glimpse the Milky Way's hazy band, try seeing it as the Zulu do, not a distant spectacle, but a living, breathing rope of light, strung between past and present, pulling us gently toward the ancestors. Before the first sunrise painted the sky, when the world was nothing but endless darkness and whisper thin threads of possibility, the Diné, the Navajo people, tell of a being who wove reality itself from the void. This was Spider Grandmother, or Nash-Jayaz-Za, the great weaver whose web stretched across the cosmos, each silken strand a constellation, each knot a story waiting to unfold. Unlike other creator deities who shout worlds into existence or carve them from chaos, her power lay in the patient, rhythmic act of spinning, thread by thread, star by star, until the heavens held shape and meaning. Her most sacred creation wasn't just the physical world, but the very blueprint of existence, the Navajo star maps. These weren't simply pictures in the sky, but a living, breathing guide woven from the 4 cardinal directions, each quadrant tied to a season, a color, and a phase of life. The Pleiades, known as Diliehe, dangled from her web like a cluster of dew-kissed berries, their rising signaling the start of the planting season. Orion's belt became Atsi-Atsusi, the first slim one, a hunter eternally chasing the celestial elk. Even the Milky Way was seen as Yggdrasil, the backbone of the night sky, its shimmering path mirroring the spine of the earth itself, a concept echoed in Navajo sand paintings where constellations align with sacred mountains. But Spider Grandmother's greatest gift was the emergence myth, a saga of how her web became a ladder for the Diné to climb from the underworlds into this, the glittering world. Unlike biblical ascents or Greek descents, this wasn't a one-way journey. The myth describes multiple underworlds, each a layer of her cosmic web where beings evolved spiritually before ascending. When the people finally reached the surface, she didn't abandon them. She taught them to read the stars as she did, not as distant points but as knots in a grand tapestry, each one holding warnings, wisdom, or promises of rain. Oral traditions recount how she strung the first loom with threads of dawnlight and twilight, showing weavers how to replicate celestial patterns in blankets and baskets, a practice still alive today in Navajo textile art, where diamond motifs mirror star clusters and zigzags trace meteor showers. Modern astronomers have uncovered something breathtaking in these traditions. The Navajo constellation Hasty-in-Sikei, the revolving man, corresponds almost exactly to the North Star's slow precessional path over millennia. How could a culture without telescopes track such gradual movement? The answer lies in Spider Grandmother's legacy of observation. Navajo star watchers, or Hathor, passed down precise oral charts noting how certain stars drifted over generations, their positions recorded in stories like The Boy Who Became a Star, where a hero's ascent alters the sky's arrangement. Even the spacing between stars in Navajo lore often matches actual astronomical distances when scaled, an accuracy some scholars argue stems from using hand-held weaving frames as measurement tools, transferring celestial proportions to textile grids. Perhaps the most poignant thread in this myth is its humility. Spider Grandmother, though all-powerful, is never depicted as a distant ruler. She's the grandmother who mends torn webs, who whispers through the wind when a star goes missing, who stitches the frayed edges of the universe each night. When you gaze at the next thunderstorm, look closely. Those raindrops catching the light might just be her latest stitches, glimmering for a moment before dissolving back into the sky's endless loom. In the deep pine forests of Finland, where the northern lights shimmer like strings plucked by invisible hands, there echoes a melody older than the wind, the music of Väinämöinen, the eternal bard whose harp didn't just play songs, but sculpted the cosmos. According to the Kalevala, Finland's national epic, this white-bearded sage didn't merely sing about creation, his fingers drew it forth from the void. When he strummed his cantil, a harp carved from the jawbone of a giant pike, the stars themselves pulsed in rhythm, their light waxing and waning with each reverberating note. The high harmonies spun the Milky Way's arch, the bass thrummed mountains into being, and the pauses between notes became the spaces where rivers learned to flow. What's astonishing isn't just the myth's poetry, it's how closely it mirrors the ancient Greek concept of the music of the spheres, where Pythagoras claimed planetary orbits created celestial harmonies. Both traditions heard mathematics in the heavens, but while Pythagoras's cosmos was rigid geometry, Väinämöinen's was alive, its music shifting like the auroras. The cantil's 5 strings corresponded to the elements water, fire, earth, air, and the 5th, sielu, soul, each vibrating at a frequency that tuned the world. Modern physicists note something eerie. The harmonic ratios described in the Kalevala align with the natural resonance frequencies of Earth's magnetosphere, the same forces that generate the northern lights. The myth deepens when you consider the harp's origin. Väinämöinen didn't craft his instrument from wood or gold, but from the bones of the monstrous pike that threatened the primordial waters, a creature later echoed in Finnish star maps as the constellation Pisces. This wasn't just symbolism, it was sonic alchemy. Indigenous Sami drummers still use fish skin membranes for their ceremonial drums, believing they capture the old songs of the world's making. When Väinämöinen played, he wasn't just performing, he was reenacting the moment chaos was transformed into order through vibration, a concept mirrored in quantum physics where sound waves can literally arrange particles into patterns. Yet the true magic lies in the bard's final act. After centuries of singing the sun up and the moon down, Väinämöinen didn't die, he sailed westward, leaving his cantil behind in the waves. Finnish fishermen claim you can still hear its faint hum in storm winds, and on especially clear nights, the auroras ripple like its lingering chords. Scientists might call those lights solar particles colliding with the atmosphere, but stand beneath them in a snowy forest, and you'll swear you hear the faintest strain of a melody, one that built the heavens and still tunes them daily, note by glowing note. Atlas, the titan cursed to hold up the heavens in Greek myth, wasn't just carrying a physical weight, his burden symbolized the axis of the cosmos itself. Straining beneath the celestial sphere, his muscles carved from marble in countless sculptures, Atlas's punishment was geological poetry, forever separating earth from sky, his outstretched arms maintaining the fragile equilibrium of the world. But dig deeper, and his role transcends mere endurance. Ancient astronomers noted how the Titan's positioning mirrored the Earth's axial tilt, his agonized stance reflecting the wobble we now call precession, that slow, 26,000-year shift in the star's orientation. The Greeks may not have known the science, but they encoded it in myth. Atlas didn't just hold up the sky, he anchored time, his labors explaining why constellations drift over epochs, why the pole star changes, and why the celestial order feels eternal yet imperceptibly shifts. Now dive into the cosmic waters of Hindu cosmology, where another being shoulders existence not with brute strength, but with serene patience. Kurma, the giant tortoise, appears during the Samudra Manthan, the churning of the ocean of milk. When the gods and demons needed a pivot to stir the primordial seas and extract the nectar of immortality, Kurma offered his shell as the foundation. His role wasn't passive, it was dynamic stability. the tortoise's curved back became the fulcrum for the churning rod, Mount Mandara, while the coiled serpent Vasuki served as the rope. Here's the brilliance: Kurma's shell mirrored the Earth's tectonic plates, his slow, deliberate movements echoing continental drift. Like Atlas, Kurma embodied axial precession, but with a twist. Hindu texts describe his subtle shifts causing the eras, or yugas, to cycle, each adjustment of his limbs marking the transition from one age to the next. The contrast between these titans reveals a fascinating duality in how cultures explained cosmic constancy. Atlas's torment was a warning against defiance, his punishment a reminder of the god's supremacy. Kurma, conversely, was a willing participant, his sacrifice an act of dharma, the cosmic order. One myth frames stability as a curse, the other as duty. Yet both converge on a profound truth: the Axis Mundi, the world's spine, isn't fixed, it breathes. What's haunting is how these myths anticipated modern astronomy. The precession of the equinoxes, that slow wobble of Earth's axis, means the celestial poles trace a circle over millennia. Atlas's trembling arms and Kurma's minute adjustments capture this motion mythically, long before Hipparchus documented it in 127 BC. Even their iconography aligns. Atlas's globe often depicts constellations frozen in a specific epoch, while temple carvings of Kurma show stars etched into his shell, their positions subtly shifting across sculptures from different eras. Perhaps the most poignant parallel lies in their legacies. Atlas's name adorns mountains and oceans, a testament to endurance. Kurma's likeness appears in temple foundations, his shell supporting entire structures. Both remind us that stability isn't stagnation, it's a dynamic dance, a balance between bearing weight and adjusting to its shifts. The next time you gaze at the night sky, remember, those stars aren't just pinned in place. They're held by a titan's grit or a tortoise's grace, in an eternal, ever-changing embrace. Deep in the shadowed corridors of the Mayan underworld, where time folded in on itself like the layers of a sacred ear of corn, the maize god embarked on a journey that would define the very cycle of life itself. Known as Hun Hunappu, this wasn't just a deity of harvest, he was the living embodiment of corn, his body woven from golden kernels, his breath carrying the scent of rain-soaked soil. His myth, carved into temple walls at Palenque and whispered across generations in the Popol Vuh, tells of a divine resurrection so intricately tied to the cosmos that it blurred the line between agriculture and astronomy. When the lords of Xibalba, the underworld, decapitated Hun Hunappu, they hung his skull in a barren calabash tree, believing his power extinguished. But here's the twist: the moment his blood dripped onto the tree's fruit, it blossomed anew, a metaphor so potent it still echoes in the milpas of modern Maya, where every planted seed is a reenactment of this celestial drama. What makes this resurrection myth extraordinary is how precisely it mirrors Venus's movements. The maize god's death and rebirth align with the planet's 8-year cycle, where Venus disappears as the evening star only to re-emerge as the morning star after a period in the underworld. Dresden Codex pages depict this transition with chilling accuracy. Hun Hunappu's severed head transforms into the morning star, his sprouting body symbolizing both the cornstalk's growth and Venus's triumphant return. Archaeologists have found ceremonial caches in Kapan containing jade maize effigies buried alongside Venus-aligned offerings, proof that the Maya didn't just observe this connection, they ritualized it, weaving celestial mechanics into the fabric of survival. The corn itself held cosmic significance. Unlike the wheat or rice of other cultures, Mayan maize wasn't merely a crop, it was sacred geometry. Each kernel's spiral arrangement followed the Fibonacci sequence, mirroring the patterns of galaxy arms and hurricane winds. The maize god's resurrection wasn't just a seasonal allegory, it encoded advanced astronomical knowledge. Temple murals at San Bartolo show him emerging from a cracked turtle shell, a symbol of the Earth's curvature, while attendants mark dates corresponding to Venus's heliacal rising. Even the act of planting carried celestial weight. Farmers timed sowing to lunar phases when Venus was ascendant, believing the soil absorbed its light like fertilizer. But the myth's deepest revelation lies in its portrayal of sacrifice. Before his resurrection, the maize god's twin sons, the hero twins, had to defeat Xibalba's lords through a series of ball games, matches representing planetary alignments. Their victory didn't just reclaim their father's life, it rebalanced the cosmos. Modern scholars note how these ballgame myths correlate with actual Venus transits, events so rare the Maya viewed them as cosmic battles. In 2012, when Venus crossed the Sun's face for the last time this century, Lacandon Maya elders performed ceremonies echoing the hero twins' showdown, proving the myth's endurance isn't just poetic, it's prophetic. What lingers most isn't the god's return, but what it cost. The maize god story teaches that resurrection isn't a single miracle, it's a cycle of loss and renewal, as inevitable as Venus's dance, and as fragile as a sprout breaking through hard earth. The next time you bite into an ear of corn, remember, you're tasting a fragment of the cosmos, a story written in star cycles and whispered by ancestors who saw the heavens not as distant lights, but as a living, breathing field waiting to be reborn. Gwian Bach was just a humble servant stirring a bubbling cauldron when 3 drops of celestial wisdom leaped onto his thumb and changed the fate of all bardic tradition forever. In that instant the young boy tasted the brew meant for his master, the sorceress Saradwin, and absorbed the essence of On, the divine inspiration flowing through the stars. What happened next wasn't just a chase, it was a metamorphosis written in the language of the cosmos itself. Saradwin, enraged by the theft, shapeshifted into a hound, then an otter, then a hawk, pursuing Gwian through forests, rivers, and finally the sky. But Gwian, now brimming with cosmic knowledge, matched her transformations, becoming a hare, a salmon, and at last, a speck of grain swallowed by the goddess, only to be reborn as Taliesin, the radiant bard whose songs could bend time and summon storms. This myth isn't just a fantastical pursuit, it's a coded manual of astral initiation. The 3 drops Gwian tasted, they mirror the 3 stars of Orion's belt, known in Celtic lore as Lyn Saradwin, Saradwin's Lake, a celestial cauldron where souls fermented before rebirth. The transformations too hold celestial significance. Each of Gwian's forms correspond to a seasonal constellation, the hare to Lepus, fleeing Orion's hounds in winter, the salmon to Pisces, swimming upstream through the Milky Way's currents, the grain to Virgo's wheat-heavy spikes in harvest season. Even Taliesin's final name reveals his cosmic role derived from Tal-Isin, radiant brow, a nod to the sun's path across the forehead of the sky. The cauldron itself is the myth's most potent symbol. Not just a vessel for potions, it represents the Ursa Major constellation, which Celtic shamans saw as a great ladle stirring the heavens. Saradwin's brew, bubbling for a year and a day, mirrors the solar cycle, with Gwian's tasting aligning with the winter solstice, the moment when the sun, like the boy, is reborn from darkness. Manuscripts like the Book of Taliesin describe bards undergoing similar initiations, fasting under the stars until visions of the cauldrons, singing sparks, likely meteors, granted them poetic gifts. What makes this myth endure is its visceral connection to lived practice. Modern druidic rituals still recreate Gwian's chase, participants donning animal masks to trace celestial patterns in torchlit fields. Neuroscientists note how the transformations mirror the dissociative states of shamanic trance, where rhythmic chanting and star-gazing induce sensations of flight or immersion. Even the speck of grain holds astronomical meaning. Some scholars link it to the grain moon, the autumn full moon signaling the bardic harvest festivals where Taliesin's verses were first sung. The next time Orion rises crisp in the winter sky, look closely. Those 3 bright stars might just be drops still simmering in Saradwin's cauldron, waiting for another thirsty soul to taste the universe's secrets and be remade. Beneath the swirling auroras of Siberia, a shaman climbs a notched birch tree, each step carrying them closer to the upper world where the stars whisper secrets. This isn't just ritual, it's a reenactment of a belief shared by cultures across continents, that the universe is held together by a sacred axis, a ladder between earth and sky. From the Norse Yggdrasil to the Hindu Mount Meru, from the Siberian World Tree to the Aboriginal Dreamtime poles, this Axis Mundi isn't merely symbolic. It's a cosmic anchor, a spinning spindle around which all of existence turns. Consider the Navajo's Tse Bit Ejective a ejective I acute, Spider Rock, a towering sandstone monolith believed to connect the lower, middle, and upper worlds. Its sheer face mirrors the path of the Milky Way, which Navajo star walkers call Yggdrasil, the celestial backbone. Shamans would meditate at its base, visualizing their spirits climbing the rock striations like rungs on a ladder, each layer corresponding to a different constellation. Meanwhile, halfway across the world, the ancient Greeks placed Mount Olympus at the center of their cosmos, its peak piercing the celestial sphere, a concept echoed in Mongolia's Burkhan Khaldan, where Genghis Khan received his divine mandate beneath the pole star. These myths aren't just poetic geography, they're precise astronomical maps. The Kogi people of Colombia aligned their sacred mountain, Ganawindua, with the Orion constellation, using its position to time agricultural cycles. The Mayan world tree, Waka Chan, wasn't just a metaphor, it was a representation of the ecliptic path, its roots in Xibalba, the underworld, and branches cradling the road of the sun. Even the biblical Jacob's ladder, with angels ascending and descending, finds parallels in the Sami Seder poles, carved with marks that track the moon's nodes critical for predicting eclipses. What unites these traditions is the shaman's journey, whether scaling the Bariat Udagan tree or the Australian Aboriginal Ngaliod rainbow serpent's path, the Axis Mundi is always a conduit. Siberian shamans describe feeling the tree's vibrations synchronize with the pulse of the North Star as they ascend. The Cherokee speak of the Uganuhi, the footprint star of Vega, which guides souls up the cosmic pole to the land of the dead. These aren't hallucinations but experiences shaped by millennia of observing celestial patterns, like the way the North Star remains stationary while other constellations revolve around it, creating the illusion of a fixed pillar in the sky. Modern cosmology reveals a haunting truth. These myths encode real celestial mechanics. Galactic filaments, the largest structures in the universe, form a web-like scaffold eerily reminiscent of the world tree's branches. The Earth's axial tilt, which dictates seasons and star paths, functionally does create a pole around which the heavens appear to rotate. Even the shaman's dizzying ascent finds a parallel in quantum physics, where particles seem to tunnel between energy states. Perhaps our ancestors sensed these connections intuitively, translating cosmic order into stories of climbable axes and talking stars. The next time you see a lone tree silhouetted against the Milky Way, try this. Imagine its roots digging into the molten core of the Earth, its crown brushing the rings of Saturn. For a fleeting moment, you might just feel the vertigo of the ancients standing at the base of the Axis Mundi, where every leaf trembles with the weight of the heavens. From the golden tears of Baltic sun goddesses to the cosmic ladders of Navajo star walkers, what these 50 celestial myths reveal isn't just humanity's endless creativity, it's something far more profound. Every culture, whether perched on icy cliffs or steaming jungles, whether carving words into clay or painting them on cave walls, has looked up and asked the same trembling questions. What lights those distant fires, who steers their paths, and perhaps most achingly do they see us down here, small and yearning beneath their glow? The answers vary wildly, but the impulse is universal, to weave the cosmos into story, to make the infinite feel intimate. Think about it, the same stars that guided Polynesian voyagers across trackless oceans also dictated the planting cycles of Maya farmers. The same eclipses that sent Babylonian priests into frenzied ritual still make modern crowds gasp behind eclipse glasses today. We've traded sacrificial altars for telescopes, but the wonder remains. That's the real magic of these myths. They're not just ancient relics, they're proof that curiosity is our oldest shared language. Whether your ancestors saw the Milky Way as a spilled basket of celestial corn, or the frothy wake of a sky ship's passage, they were all trying to decode the same glittering mystery. Now comes the best part. This conversation isn't over. Your family might have its own stories about the stars, whispered over campfires or scribbled in forgotten diaries. Maybe your grandmother pointed out a constellation with a name no textbook records, or your culture celebrates a moon festival with origins lost to time. That's where you come in. Scroll down and share those fragments in the comments, because every retelling stitches another patch into this vast, shimmering tapestry of human wonder. And if you're hungry for more mysteries, let's face it, the universe has plenty. Hit that subscribe button. We've barely scratched the surface of history's enigmas, and the next one might just rewrite everything you thought you knew about the sky above us. Until then, keep looking up. The stars have been telling stories for millennia,